Hey guys. This is what if Kakashi went back in time and was overpowered. 30-year-old Kakashi was supposed to have been killed by Pein during the invasion. Instead, he wakes up in the body of his 20-year-old self. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 1. So, what did you get us, Captain? Kakashi looked up from the sheaf of papers and raised an eyebrow. You're still on medical leave, Genma, he said. Discharged as of 40 minutes and 36 seconds ago, Genma said, rummaging through his hip pouch and pulling out a crumpled wad of papers stamped with official-looking seals. See? Kakashi could smell the faint whiff of chakra that marked the hospital's seals as genuine. You know how angry Ito was when you and Raider faked your papers last time, he said absently as he moved away from the mission desk, flicking through the papers casually. Quick assassination in grasp of some minor lording the daimyo wanted gone, requesting it done the usual way. His mouth twisted. Another quick stab and run then, with the heart and head packed along so the daimyo could parade it around the capital or hang it up on his wall, or do whatever he wanted to do with the remains of a dead man. Kakashi wasn't paid to think about that. I don't even want to think about it. Genma chewed on his samban fiercely, the end bobbing up and down like a leaf blown by the wind. I still haven't recovered from the last medical evaluation he gave me. Good. Means the lesson's sticking. Kakashi cleared his throat and tucked the papers away in a pouch, a soft curl of chakra sealing it shut. A quick A rank, he said. In and out, we've got 4 days. Shodai's balls, don't tell me it's another. Genma cut his sentence short at Kakashi's hard look. He shrugged and shoved his hands in his pockets. Didn't think I was getting out so early for another support mission, he muttered, samban rising and falling with every word. A mission's a mission, Kakashi said, suddenly feeling very tired. Tomorrow at 0600, we'll meet at the northeast alcove. Pack the usual. Yeah, alright. See you tomorrow morning then, Captain. Genma slouched away, looking much more despondent. Kakashi watched the other man's back disappear behind a corner before he rubbed at his uncovered eye, the sealed papers pressing insistently at his hip. Memorial first, he decided, his eye watering a little, still irritated from the poison gas from the last mission. Obito, Rin and Sensei were waiting for him. The stone was cool against his cheek, sharp cuts of kanji digging into his skin uncomfortably. It was a distinctly familiar sensation. I've got another one, Kakashi said quietly. Grass. Do you remember the courier mission we had there, delivering messages to the front line? You tripped over a pod of carnivorous vines and Sensei lost a good chunk of hair trying to rescue you. He licked his lips and the sweaty fabric of his mask caught at his tongue. This one makes 126. 126 hearts he'd held in his hand and crushed, 126 chests he'd ripped apart with his fists. Some days, he wondered if Obito had given this gift out of spite. Every single target still lived in his mind, trapped by the cruel accuracy of the Sharingan. When closed his eye, he could see their pale faces, close enough that he could feel a phantom breath. Those were the days he stayed away from the memorial, too angry and bitter to be polite to the dead. But his guilt drew him back and his old, broken promise, shattered edges still sharp enough to draw blood. I don't think this is exactly what you had in mind when you gave up your eye, Kakashi said, tracing Nohara Arayan with a fingertip, the name weathered by wind and rain and his trembling touch. I should go. The team's waiting for me, he said distantly, and so was Hunter's noble head, waiting to be parted from his body with a quick stroke of his ninjato. He unfolded his long, lanky limbs with a grimace and stood up, his ankle creaking in protest. Kakashi gave the horizon a quick glance, and the clouds that hovered at the edges confirmed his ankle's suspicions. Rain in a few hours. He adjusted the weight of the pack and pulled down his mask, fastening it with a string of chakra. His shock of pale hair disappeared under a heavy black hood and Hataki Kakashi disappeared, ANBU Hound standing in his place. A quick seal and the bogeyman melted into the shadows, with only a slight breeze marking his passage. He's summering in a villa about 10 miles from here, with his 3 wives and 4 children. Kakashi unrolled the scroll on the ground, revealing schematics for an expansive compound that housed 50 samurai guards, 20 odd servants, and the grass lordling's family. He's expecting something, considering that he's gone and hired the Kakar brothers, formerly of Kiri. Raider whistled through his teeth, impressed. On the bingo books for all the major 5 countries, he said, leaning back on his haunches. Genjutsu and Taijutsu combo, real nasty. That takes some serious Ryu, Genma considered, looking up from the rolls of bandages he was rearranging. Isn't he just supposed to be some minor lord or something? A minor lord suspected of leading a coup in planning, Kakashi said quietly. Grass's daimyo wants him to be made an example of. Well, if he's sending us after him, he must really have it in for him, Reida said sardonically, but his face was serious, considering the problem before them with a critical eye. So what's the plan, boss? Tenzu, I want you to cover the place with your seeds, subdue the samurai and the servants, and keep an eye out for any backup. Worst comes to worst, I want the entire place sealed. Kakashi nodded at the silent figure sitting to his right, a huddled black-cloaked figure with a grinning cat mask. Of course, Captain, you overexert yourself again. Don't count on me dragging your sorry ass all the way back to Konoha, Genma sniped, snapping his medkit closed and slinging it over his shoulder. Getting as bad as the captain about draining yourself high and dry. It was just once, Tenzu muttered, and if it had come from anyone else Kakashi would have thought it sounded petulant. Chances are, they'll have the entire place under a low-level genjutsu to alert intruders. Intel says they're under heavy guard here. Kakashi tapped a small, unassuming-looking room in a northwest corner, which was conveniently located near a river and quick escape. I can layer another genjutsu over the top before dispelling it, but it only gives us maybe 10 minutes, tops. You'll have to be in position and cover the entire place before the missing Nin realize that security's been compromised. Ginma, Reidu, you'll be dealing with the Kakar brothers. You're so good to us, Reidu said dryly and ran a hand through his short crop of brown hair. Like New Year's come early, look at all the presents Captain's giving to us, Ginma. Just got my ass out of the hospital, Ginma moaned and his mouth twitched, as if it were chewing on an invisible saman. Don't want to see Ito's ugly mug for another month at least. Ito-sensei probably feels the same way, Tenzu said in a quiet, unassuming voice. Judging by the way he nearly had a heart attack over your bed last week. Look at that, Reidu grinned, elbowing Ginma in the ribs. Our little rookie's growing up, making fun of his senpai like that. Mission, Kakashi said, and the cheerful mood in the air quickly deflated with the one word. He swallowed hard, Obito's eye stinging under his forehead protector. After I deal with the mark and the secondary targets, the missing Nin will be the next priority. Make sure to lead them away, out of the compound preferably. Yes, Captain, Ginma said soberly, Reidu chiming in a beat later. Scorched earth, Kakashi said heavily and pulled his hood up. When the primary objectives have been achieved, there are to be no surviving witnesses. Tenzu, you know what to do. By the Shodai, Reidu breathed as he tugged his tiger mask over his face. How much gold did the daimyo fork over for this? Too much, Tenzu said hollowly as he stood up silently, a lithe black shadow. Kakashi silently agreed. With a twist of chakra he released the genjutsu in the clearing and signaled his team with a subtle gesture. Move out, for black ghosts melted away in the gloomy forest light. When he opened Obito's eye, everything came alive. Colors became stronger, and the pale yellow grass around him glowed with vibrant life, soft tendrils of blue weaving through the strands. He blinked and a thin web of chakra over the beautiful country villa came into view, a dome of blue so pale that it looked almost ghostly. In the back of his head Kakashi kept a careful eye on his chakra reserves, already dipping with every second. The seals came automatically, chakra flooding his fingers with a familiar burn, and he wove the strands carefully, gently, until he had a net that glowed in his hands, as bright as Minato-sensei's eyes. A quick breath and it drifted away from him, borne by a gentle evening breeze, before settling itself over the dome of chakra with a loving caress. Kakashi cut the thread that bound him to his creation and closed Obito's eye, and the world suddenly darkened, mundane and ordinary. Kakashi signaled at Tenzu with a twitch of his fingers, and the dark wraith at his side unfurled into the sky. 6 long tense minutes passed as Kakashi kept watch, Reidu and Ginma waiting obediently at his side, chakra tightly leashed. They were too well trained to betray tension, but Kakashi could smell it anyway, a heavy musk of fear and anticipation. Finally, the signal came. Tenzu's chakra flared once, twice, all clear and ready. Kakashi breathed out silently and flicked a finger at the two behind him. Time to go hunting. Genma's hand ghosted lightly over Kakashi's shoulder before he followed Reidu, his cloak fluttering in the wind. Kakashi cautiously expanded his senses and felt Tenzu's chakra coiled up on the roof, a tiny blip. Genma and Reidu were moving through the compound easily. There were the missing Nin, lounging idly by the northwest corridor. It was time. He slithered through the grass with practiced ease, the grass swaying slightly in time with the wind. A seal and a burst of chakra and he slipped through an open window, neatly sidestepping a bound servant girl who lay collapsed on the floor, immobilized by a pale fleck of wood bound to her forehead. She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes, the front of her dress damp with urine. It was better for Tenza to have one less to control. Kakashi bent down and palmed a kunai and neatly slit her throat. Strands of her dark brown hair, sticky with blood, clung to his kunai and he wiped it methodically on her sleeve. It was cut to her chin, like he was wasting time. Kakashi stepped into the shadows, gripping his weapon tight, and followed the map in his head. Left, right, past the courtyard and the main gardens, chakra flared bright and hard in the distance, and he heard an enraged shout and the clang of steel on steel. Reido and Genma were entertaining the guests. Kakashi grunted and sped up, not bothering with the civilians littering the house like broken dolls. He dealt with a good quarter of them, and there was the more important objective to think of. Fucking Konoha. The back of his neck prickled. The air thickened and seemed to grow heavier, killing intent and swirling mist bound into a growing fog. For renowned silent Kiri killers, they were annoyingly loud. He clicked his tongue as he approached the northwest corridor, pockmarked with scattered kunai and shuriken and blooms of ash. The ordinary-looking rice paper door fairly pulsed with seals. Even without Obito's eye, he could see the masterful ink edging the wooden frame, protecting and guarding. A perfect prison. From a hip pouch, he pulled out a packet of seals he'd made up a few missions ago. Just a few tweaks and what would keep intruders out, would keep the grass lord inside. He drew a finger down the middle of the seal and the paper lit up, the edges glowing a dim blue. One for every cardinal point. Kakashi stepped back and activated the network with a hand seal. The dim hallway suddenly lit up with a flare of chakra and he stepped inside the room. Don't worry, Chio-chan, the mark said soothingly, cradling a child in robes of the finest silk. The bodyguards will take care of everything, we'll be just fine. Kakashi pulled away from the shadows and into the light. Tonight, judgment has been passed upon you and your family, he said dully and opened Obito's eye. No, every panicked breath, every drop of sweat, every shout was burned into his sight. The mark pushed his child behind him, and she stumbled towards the trembling mass of wives and wailing babies in the back of the room. Guards, it's no use, Kakashi said. Ox, rabbit, monkey. The air sang with the scream of 1,000 chirping birds, and the smell of sharp ozone almost covered the heavy stench of fear. The mark stepped forward, his foot rising up from the ground. Kakashi moved. The mark's foot still hovered in the air as Kakashi cradled the mark's shoulder with one arm, the other plunged into the man's chest. Blood dripped over his dark cloak and splattered his mask. He could feel it seep into his face mask. Gently, he pulled his arm out and settled the man down on the ground. Blood pooled onto the floor and soaked the rich blue robes, fit for a daimyo. Lay down your tanto, Kakashi said as he unsheathed his ninjato, still crouched on the ground. The woman standing behind him swayed on her feet, the little chakra she had spiking wildly. You cannot harm the children. With one swift motion, he rose from the ground and plunged it into the woman's ribs, angled just right to hit her lungs. With a choked sigh, she collapsed onto the floor, an eerie parallel to her husband. Behind her, a child started wailing. With a deep, shuddering breath, he called upon his chakra and fed it into Obito's eye with a fierce burst, weaving a thick genjutsu that settled over the women and children, giving them a final rest. The girl's cry cut off. There was nothing but silence now. Kakashi's head started pounding and Obito's eye sucked hungrily at his chakra, feeding greedily. He wavered a little and then shook his head. In the distance, he could feel Genma and Raiders swirling and clashing and Tenza high above them all, a watchful presence. He had to complete the mission, had to lead his team out of this bloody mess. He knelt down on the floor and began his work. Genma's shoulder twitched and Kakashi was well versed enough in Genma's own unique body language to read what took you so long. Kakashi shrugged in response. The containment scrolls were safely stowed away in his pack. The daimyo would have his proof soon enough. What's this, another one? One of the brothers sneered, batting away Kakashi's kunai with almost insulting ease. Like cockroaches, the way you seem to pop up everywhere. Kakashi twisted around and spat a fireball at the missing nin, ducking down just in time as Raida aimed a well-timed kick at the ninja's head. The force of the blow nearly knocked his hood back and he shot Raidu a dirty look. Now you're just starting to bore me, Kakar said, sighing a little as he bent backwards at almost a 90-degree angle to avoid the attack. Kakashi narrowed an eye at the shadow the fireball briefly illuminated. Clone substitution, he signaled towards Genma and slipped into the earth. He reappeared a few yards behind Kakaru and his awkwardly shaped shadow, dampening down on his chakra as tightly as possible. His clone, Raidu and Genma easily worked in tandem to contain the Kakaru, but from behind, it became clear how the man toyed with them, sidling away from every punch and ninjutsu like he had all the time in the world. Like his opponents just weren't fast enough to keep up with him. Kakashi held back an irritated sigh. Like they were just a fraction too slow. He let his clone explode in a storm of lighting. Kakar flinched as he flared his chakra and snapped the threads of genjutsu that wound irritatingly around him and his team. The missing Nin shuddered as Kakashi's chakra washed over him and Raidu went in for the kill, his kick landing solidly on the man's chest. Genma darted around him and followed it up with a shower of saban that riddled his torso. Kakar's shadow shivered as it rose up from the ground and clutched his body protectively. It morphed into a slim, lithe figure, streaked with his brother's blood. "How dare you!" Kakashi could almost see Genma's eye roll as he palmed a kunai and went for the throat. Or at least tried to. His body stiffened and the kunai dropped from his grasp. Raidu's eyes rolled into the back of his head and he collapsed onto the ground. Well, this was proving interesting. Kakashi opened Obito's eye for the third time. Genjutsu Kakuru laid his brother down on the ground and snarled at him. "You scum, I'll make you pay for this. For my brother." Kakashi tilted his head and Obito's eye swirled almost lazily as he dismissed the genjutsu. His chakra level sank even lower, and he could feel the icy burn in his feet, which meant that he hadn't much left before he was going to burn through his reserves. Kakuru was weaving his illusions with his voice well, that was irritating. Long-range sound-based genjutsu. Now it was a battle of stamina. How much longer would Kakuru try to distract him against how many more illusions Kakashi could to afford dispel with the Sharingan while trying to kill him? He didn't very much like the odds. No more ninjutsu. He was down to his ninjato, 13 kunai, 15 shuriken and smoke bombs he couldn't afford to use, not if he wanted to maintain visual contact. "You're not. How did you recognize it?" "Another one." Kakashi dispelled it with another burst of chakra and stalked closer towards the target, unsheathing his ninjato. A quick step and, damn, he was fast. Kakashi bared his teeth, blood dripping from his blade. He managed to scratch Kakuru's cheek. They circled each other a long moment before they clashed again, steel ringing on steel. A quick twist and Kakashi sent his last remaining kunai flying, which Kakuru easily dodged. "I didn't think Konoha's ANBU were such disappointing fighters," he smiled cruelly, his filed teeth gleaming in the moonlight. Kakashi ignored him and surged forward, beating him back with a furious rush of strikes and right into Genma's waiting embrace. "How did?" Genma pulled out a kunai from his arm with a grunt and held it to Kakuru's neck. "Hound never misses," he said darkly. Kakashi was close enough to see the throbbing artery pulse in the missing Nin's throat, a thin sheen of sweat soaking his grimy bandages. He reeled backwards a little unsteadily and closed Obito's eye, ignoring the dizzying rush of pain as the world crumpled and darkened. Chakra buzzed in his head, angry sparks of fire that burst and exploded. "Kill him," he said hoarsely. "Glad?" Kakuru's arm snapped out and he gripped Kakashi's wrist. Everything exploded. "Please," Rin wept. "Please, Kakashi. You have to kill me." Blood pooling in his hands and throbbing in his hand, that was Rin's heart beating and pulsing in his hand, and Obito would never forgive him. He killed her, he killed Rin. Father looked up at him, dark eyes so empty and cold, and Kakashi turned away, calling him a traitor, an embarrassment, a disappointment towards the village. "I hate you," he said, and Father sank down on the floor, tanto deep in his stomach and blood dripping from Kakashi's hands. Dead by Kakashi's hand. Dead. He killed his father. "Promise me, Kakashi." Obito looked up at him with half a smile, the other half buried under 2 tons of rubble. "Promise me you'll protect Rin and the village." And Kakashi nodded and promised, and then punched his clenched fist through Rin's chest with Obito's eye. "You'll take care of Naruto, right, Kakashi-kun?" And of course he would. Naruto was Sensei's kid, of course he was gonna look after him. And Kakashi had nodded and promised and then thrown him away and watched the entire village hate little Naruto, watched the entire village shun and despise Sensei's son, Kushina-san's son. "You cannot harm the children," and Kakashi went and slit the throats of 3 women, 2 girl-childs, 1 toddler boy and a baby so fragile, smelling of powder and milk. He killed them and then sealed their cold little bodies away in scrolls so they could be hung on a stone wall, and their eyes pecked out by crows. Kakashi looked down at his bloody red hands, so bright and slippery, smelled death on his skin, oozing out of every pore. A killing machine, a tool, who'd killed all of his friends and let them die, and a steady hand gripped his shoulder and pulled him close, and Kakashi stiffened. "Come here," a voice beckoned, and Kakashi obeyed unthinkingly. "Open your eyes." He touched his face. He hadn't realized they were closed. With tentative fingers he covered his left side and opened his right. The other one too. A gentle hand pulled his hand away from his face, and Kakashi blinked. He was standing in front of the memorial. He blinked again and touched his face. No mask, no scar, and no Obito's eye, he breathed in sharply. Well, it's not exactly ours, is it? Kakashi turned sharply towards the voice and staggered back, disoriented. This was no reflection, a figure on a flat surface, his every move a copy. That was him, sort of him. A clone. A sloppy one in a flak vest and long hair and crow's feet. Yo, Hatake, Kakashi said. Kakashi formed shaky fingers into a seal and flared his chakra, searching for the tenuous link between the clone and him. There wasn't one. Disperse, he snarled. The clone, irritatingly, didn't. That's kind of rude, the other Kakashi said reprovingly, slouching and shoving his hands into his pocket. Is this some kind of genjutsu? Kakashi flared his chakra again, but he couldn't feel the confusion in his chakra flow. He pinched at the web between his thumb and finger, but the memorial stayed constant, and so did the clone not clone. Well, the other Kakashi said. I think it started out as one. Kakeru, Kakashi growled, hackles rising as he remembered Rin and Obito sentient. Yes, Kakeru, the other Kakashi said agreeably. Well, when I thought I died, I thought I was going to see Rin and Obito and everyone. Is this supposed to be hell? What? Hell. Maybe it is, the other Kakashi mused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. I always did hate myself the most. Maybe I'm condemned to spend the rest of my afterlife with myself. Kakashi sniffed, the sense clearer and headier without the mask, and the other smelled right and wrong. Like him and not him. And sad. That, at least, was familiar. Who are you? He asked guardedly, shifting his weight to settle into a taijutsu stance. I'm you, the other said. I thought that was kind of obvious. Kakashi narrowed his eyes and changed tacks. How old are you? He asked carefully. The other looked vaguely uncomfortable. Hunching over a bit, Kakashi looked disdainfully at all the tells the other was projecting. Well, 30, Kakashi reeled. 30. I live to be 30? He blurted out. Well, yes, the other said. But just barely. Sort of. I don't know. Maybe I'm the one in a genjutsu? You don't sound convinced, Kakashi said and leaned back on a tree, which suddenly and conveniently appeared the minute he thought it would be nice to lean on one. He looked at it suspiciously for a moment. Well, the other said embarrassedly, a faint tinge of red on his cheeks. My last memories are of me stupidly sacrificing my life for someone else's in a great and tragic battle. ANBU, right? Kakashi asked tiredly. ANBU until he died, not bad, but he couldn't imagine another decade of assassinations without wanting to choke himself. No, the other said quietly. It's complicated, but the village is attacked and threatens the safety of one of my teammates. So I save him. Not ANBU? Not Genma or Reidu or Tenzu. I quit, the other said. A long, long time ago. Quit, Kakashi echoed. Life without ANBU, he could barely imagine it. Life outside the special housing, outside of HQ, outside the constant missions and assassinations and stays in the hospital, staring at the water-damaged tiles. How old are you? The other asked keenly, rocking back on his heels. 20, Kakashi said. Said the other. There was a long, long silence. Kakashi finally prodded, unable to stand it any longer. Despite the fact that this was some cleverly constructed genjutsu, the other was too interesting not to probe. I think I'd like to sit, the other announced and settled down into a comfortable armchair. He waved a hand in front of him, and a matching armchair popped into existence. Care to join me? Kakashi shrugged and moved away from the tree into the chair, deliberately ignoring how it disappeared as he moved. So, here's my theory, the other said, leaning back in his chair, eyes closed. The scar was still there. Kakashi discreetly touched his own and found the jagged scar that bisected his left eye, a solid reminder of what had been. It was a quiet relief. I know I'm real. Relatively sure, anyway. I'm in the middle of fighting Pein, or one of Pein, or well, actually it's two of him. Things go awfully. I end up being sort of killed with a nail, which is very pathetic. I bet Obito is laughing his ass off at that, and then I use Kamui to save the Akimichi boy. I'm dead out of chakra. I know I'm going to die. The other opened his eyes and his dark eyes pierced Kakashi's own. You, 20-year-old ANBU hound Hatake Kakashi, were trapped in a nasty self-fulfilling genjutsu while emotionally compromised and mildly chakra exhausted. Kakashi stiffened. Me. 30 years old, dying dead, on the way to death. You. 20 years old, mind extremely vulnerable. This doesn't make any sense, Kakashi protested, trying to wrap his mind around the frighteningly disturbed logic the other was using. What kind of genjutsu makes up a me that doesn't even look like me and then have him talk about I don't even know what he's talking about? Is this supposed to make me insane? Hatake Kakashi looked at Hatake Kakashi. What if I told you that I developed Manjikyu enough so that I could use it to transport objects through space and time and other dimensions? And that it was the last thing I did before dying? Kakashi instinctively touched his left eye, but he found nothing but the jagged scar. This doesn't make any sense, he said again, his voice very, very quiet, like the science fiction manga Kushina-san hid under the bed. The other agreed. Because if we didn't know any better, we could theoretically be talking about time travel here. Fuck, Kakashi said sourly. Let's say I believe you, Kakashi said haltingly. And that this isn't some kind of crazed figment of my imagination. Well, that's entirely possible. Maybe we're figments of each other's imaginations, the other drawled. You talk too much, Kakashi snapped. And you don't talk nearly enough, the other countered. Kakashi shut his eyes and counted to 10 and tried not to think about throttling his older, annoying future self who might also be hallucination. Just shut up. Let me think. Mercifully, the other stayed silent. What's it like? Being 30, Kakashi said, struggling to find the right words. After ANBU after now. I quit ANBU at 20, the other said. Now? Kakashi jerked, gripping the armrest tightly. Sort of. Kakar was involved then too. The other shrugged. The genjutsu was nasty. I was wrung out from the mission and I'd been running a string of them because Obito died that month, Kakashi continued in a low voice. Yes, the other said, subdued. You know how it is. He grinned, the edges all bitter and sharp. Nearly got the team killed and scarred our little Kohai Tenzu for life. Ended up in the hospital for weeks, and by the time psych evals were over, they asked me if I wanted to do another one-off toes. I didn't. So I quit. Quit ANBU, Kakashi said again, tentatively prodding the concept with a cautious thought. I know, the other grimaced, rubbing his face ruefully. It was hard and awful, and for a while I almost re-enlisted. But? Kakashi probed. The other signed painfully. Then Guy decided that I was his hip cool rival, and after that. The other shrugged. Guy, Kakashi considered. It couldn't be that strange taijutsu-obsessed chunin who cried a lot, could it? Or wept tears of manly joy, whatever? Yeah, that's him. The other said. Kakashi gave him a look. Yeah, well, don't judge me, the other said, crossing his arms over his chest. I didn't say it was the greatest experience of my life. That's it. Kakashi hazarded. You became friends with Guy and then you died? It seemed to be a short and unfulfilling life. No, the other said slowly. I got a pack. Pack's dead, Kakashi said, and the armchair creaked as he gripped it. They're dead, he said. New pack, the other said gently. Sort of. I got a genin team, you know, and they changed my life. But they're dead, Kakashi said again, desperately. He leaned forward and looked up at Hatake Kakashi, up at himself. Rin and Obito and Sensei and father there. Pack grows and changes, the other said and leaned forward, so close that they were nose to nose, breath mingling. And I failed them, Kakashi whimpered. Not again, he whispered hoarsely. Again, the other said, and when he blinked, his eyes grew bright and watery, and oh, the other was crying. Dead, traitor, ignored. Threw them away like trash. Couldn't teach them right, didn't teach them, failed my pack. Kakashi couldn't imagine living with more than Obito's eye and Rin's death and Sensei's scorned legacy. More, he considered. More pack, more failures. 10 more years worth, and now you're dead. And now I'm dead, the other said bitterly and turned away, drawing back into himself. The false cheerfulness from earlier fell away and curled up in front of him. Kakashi saw himself, broken and shattered and so tired. What was it like having a pack? Kakashi asked tentatively. I taught Uzumaki Naruto, you know. Sensei and Kushina-san's son, Hatake Kakashi said. Haruno Sakura, civilian girl. Uchiha Sasuke, Obito's nephew. My pack, Kakashi considered. Oh, they were mine, you know, Hatake Kakashi said. Mine, and bared his teeth and stared straight down at 20-year-old Kakashi, who lived for nothing but the next mission and the ghosts that wandered around the memorial stone. Down at packless Kakashi. And Kakashi, 20-year-old intimidated Kakashi, was struck with a crazy, reckless idea. Your pack and my pack, Kakashi said. Our pack. I guess so, Hatake Kakashi said suspiciously, mouth thinning. But they're also dead. Our pack is dead. Will be. But they're not now, are they? Kakashi said. They're still alive. Well, yes, here with you, but Kakashi lunged forward and decided to take a risk. He grabbed the other man's wrist. Do you trust me? He asked. Do I trust myself? Hatake's eyebrow quirked. Strangely, I do. Promise me that you'll take care of them, Kakashi said and pressed his thumb over the other man's pulse, heartbeat thrumming. Take care of the pack. I don't understand. Promise me, Kakashi said fiercely, pressing down hard with his thumb. Promise me that you'll take care of them. That you won't fail them. Not this time, Hatake swallowed. I promise. Okay. Kakashi relaxed and pulled away, loosening his grip. You promised. Taking a deep breath, he willed a tanto into being, and the sudden gleam of his father's blade in his hands, whole and unbroken, cemented his choice. Comprehension dawned on Hatake's face. No, this is my choice, Kakashi said. And you promised. Don't break it. But father, why are you even doing this? There's no honor or anything. I don't understand, Hatake wondered, face pale. Because pack, Kakashi said simply. Take care of them for me and Tenzu too. And everyone else who will become pack. But, take care of them, Kakashi said. I will. I will, of course I will, but the tanto slid into belly, and for some strange reason it didn't hurt. There wasn't any pain at all, just a warmth that filled him up, and he gripped the handle tight, slick as though it was with his blood, and moved it, left to right. Take care of them, he panted. Or else. A cool hand cupped his cheek, and his own dark eyes stared at him. Thank you, don't be. Kakashi summoned up a weak grin. This is me being selfish after all. Second chance. Hatake. Kakashi pulled away. I'll live extra long for you, he promised. Don't fuck it up, he muttered and closed his eyes. Chapter 2. Safe. The air was heavy with the smell of rain and rotting leaves, the pungent and familiar odor of fire country during monsoon season. Kakashi shifted a little and felt the catch of his armor rub against his skin, mud digging into his sandals. Unbound. Tentatively, he drew within himself and checked his chakra levels, low, but slowly rising, and not as expansive as he could remember. Where previously there had been a deep well, the chakra reserves inside of him more resembled a pool. The stupid kid really did manage it. He did it. Kakashi cracked his eye open. Captain, Tenzu said, his face near enough that it filled up his vision and far away enough that Kakashi couldn't reach out and strangle him. Pain lanced in his head, knives of hot steel furiously stabbing at Obito's eye. He ignored it. Pain meant he was alive, meant that this wasn't some fucked up illusion. Water, he croaked and struggled to sit up, shooting Tenzu a nasty glare when he moved to support him. Not dead, Kakashi muttered and settled for propping his back on a thick tree root, oilcloths slipping down. He grabbed at it with clumsy fingers and pulled it back up, making sure his ankle was covered. It was throbbing madly, threatening rain in a few minutes. He sniffed the air. 15 minutes, more like? Kakashi accepted the canteen Tenzu silently handed him with ill grace and swished his mouth. The water was cold and delicious. His first drink of his new life. Sitrep, he said, forcing his thick tongue to move. Secondary targets were eliminated a few minutes after you went down, sir. Tiger sealed their scrolls and Wolf eliminated the witnesses with a poison gas. After the objectives were accomplished, Tiger took temporary command and we returned to our secondary rendezvous point, Tenzu recited, voice muffled by the mask he still wore. The white porcelain was now grimy, splattered with dried blood and mud. Tiger and Wolf have set up a perimeter and will return within a few minutes. Shodai's balls, he'd forgotten how young Tenzu was. Kakashi squinted at the small figure kneeling next to him, hands clenched on his thighs. Probably still a rookie, Kakashi mused. Had his voice even broken yet? There was a long pause and he abruptly realized that he was supposed to speak. Good, he said. The containment scrolls, in your pack. Wolf also sealed the Kakar brothers for Tianai, sir. It seemed Kakar would bring him good fortune even in death. Kakashi smiled grimly and sipped at the canteen, watching how Tenzu discreetly turned away as he did so. Good kid, Kakashi thought fondly. Pack, came the unbidden thought, and something in his chest tightened. How long was I out? He asked, trying to shake off the feeling. Only about half an hour, sir. Tenzu paused and then added, a little hesitantly, Wolf isn't very happy about that. Sir, I've only dragged his sorry ass around for 100 times, Genma grumbled, dropping from a branch without a sound. Mama Genma was worried sick about you, Captain, Reidu added cheerfully, a large dark shadow winding his way through the tree roots. Should have seen him fret about you, poor man. That was a nasty genjutsu, Genma shrugged. Knocked you clean of your feet, Captain? I almost thought Kakara had really got you there, but of course, you're too hard-headed for that. Sir, it was, Kakashi agreed and privately thought that his Genma, older Genma, was much more reasonable. He set the canteen down with slow, clumsy fingers. All clear? All clear, Reidu confirmed. wires and notes, and all the necessary goodies to keep our convalescing captain safe and happy. It was startlingly easy to fall back into the old, familiar pattern with them. He'd never really left ANBU, no one did, but it was still good to see them, alive and relatively sane, and Rada's face clear of the ugly scar. Mission, a voice in the back of his mind prodded, sounding suspiciously like the younger version of him. Kakashi dredged up a little energy to rummage through a hip pouch, fishing out a summoning scroll. He bit down hard on his thumb and swiped it down the unfurling scroll with a clumsy move, blood streaking across the kanji jaggedly. A puff of smoke enveloped his face, and a distinctly heavy weight settled on his lap. "Get off me, Bull," Kakashi croaked and shoved ineffectually at the warm lump. Bull ignored him and gave him a sloppy kiss, snuffling eagerly at his fingers for treats. "Not right now," he said as gently as possible and crooked a finger at Tenzu. Scrolls. Tenzu disappeared into the forest and reappeared a moment later, carefully holding Kakashi's pack with 2 hands. He settled it down by Kakashi's legs and resumed a watchful position at his side. Kid was getting to be just as bad as Pakin, Kakashi observed, digging through the pack. 4 scrolls stinking of chakra and blood were shoved inelegantly into Bull's drooling mouth. "Send that over to the outpost near Grass's border, strictly for Gekka's eyes only." Bull nudged Kakashi's hand affectionately, and disappeared with a crack of burnt chakra. "We'll move out in an hour," Kakashi said, slowly rolling up the scroll. "Get some rest while you can." Genma opened his mouth, his face mutinous, but Rada's hand stopped him, clamping down hard on his shoulder. "As long as I don't have to carry you again, sir." Genma shrugged nonchalantly, but Kakashi could hear the undercurrent of concern. "Don't worry," Kakashi smiled, enjoying the way Genma and Rada's faces blanched. "You won't have to again." Pack, Uzumaki Naruto, Horno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke. Kakashi absently bit down on the end of the pencil, sharp canines worrying the wood. Of the 3, Naruto was the easiest and the hardest. The easiest to please, his face an open book. He also, Kakashi noted dryly, had an organization made up of S-class missing nin dedicated to finding and killing him. Sakura was a little harder. A civilian from a decent family. Lonely, even after she'd met Ino. Probably taught that a good civilian girl should be quiet and demure and beautiful. But she was also the smartest of all 3 of his students, and he was reminded of Obito when he saw her, desperate to fit in and gain acceptance. A clever civilian outsider who craved approval. Sasuke was temperamental, selfish, and so very lonely, driven only by his love and hatred of his brother. Kakashi grunted as he bit into his pencil and tasted the lead filling. The Uchiha massacre did more than ruin Sasuke. It had ripped his team apart. Kakashi scowled. Too many variables, too many dangers. But he'd promised himself, promised that he would protect them, and he would. No matter what. Putting the pencil down, he picked up an ink brush at his side and a fresh sheet of rice paper. Hatake Kakashi formally requests an audience with the Sandaime Hokage. Dressed in a musty old vest he dug out from the back of his closet and standard-issue navy blue uniform, Kakashi felt much more like himself. He adjusted his mask and patted absently at a pocket where was Ika when he needed it. Ah. Of course. He'd only started reading it once he left service, and younger Kakashi was still serving as a ANBU hound. "Hatake-san?" Kakashi looked up and blinked at the chunin manning the desk. "You may enter now." He gave the man a nod and unfolded himself from the shadows, gesturing at the hidden ANBU behind the desk discreetly. "Safe watch." The doors opened in front of him, and Kakashi stepped forward into the office of the most powerful man in the country. "Hatake-kun," Sandaime-sama said, puffing serenely at his pipe behind his desk. "It's very good to see you." How strange, to see the familiar smoke wreathe the Hokage's hat and pipe at his mouth. Even stranger to think that Tsunade wasn't sitting there, bellowing orders at him and smashing sake bottles. "Hokage-sama," Kakashi said and dropped into the standard crouch, fist over his heart in the proper salute. "I've come to beg forgiveness for my actions." "Forgiveness?" He could hear the eyebrow raise in the Sandaime's voice. "What for?" "I've come to tender my resignation from ANBU, effective immediately," Kakashi said, staring down at an interestingly shaped knot on the floor, ignoring the soft flutters of chakra around him. It looked a little like Pakin's nose. No doubt word would be out of his resignation before he stepped out of the office. ANBU could be terribly nosy like that. There was a long silence, and his ankle started muttering protests. "I see," Sandaime finally said, and Kakashi dared a quick glance up. The Hokage's brow sucked contemplatively on his pipe, brow furrowed. "How have you come to this decision, Hatake-kun?" Kakashi paused. I joined when Minato-sensei gave up his life to protect the village, he said quietly. That was 6 years ago, Hokage-sama. Kakashi paused again and thankfully, the Hokage remained silent, knowing that Kakashi took the time to collect his thoughts. I have come to realize that my duty now lies not to the protection of the village and service to the core but somewhere else. And what might that be? Hokage-sama asked, tapping ashes out of his pipe. Clink, 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 to Sensei's legacy. Kakashi supposed he was laying it on a little too thick, reminding the Hokage that the Yondaime happened to be his teacher, but he would take every card he could get. Do you know what you're asking, Hataki-kun? Sandaime-sama asked gravely, setting down his pipe and steepling his old, wrinkled fingers. He had never been more sure in his life. Yes, Kakashi said and dared to look up and straight at the older man's eyes. He saw old, dark black eyes that had seen more than he and his younger self put together. 2 wars and the rise of a village, reigning twice, more than any Kage in the history of the hidden villages. Solemn, impenetrable eyes that hinted at a strength that could topple mountains and gently guide a young child. He suddenly felt very, very young in the presence of those eyes. Yes, Hokage-sama, he repeated. Sandaime-sama inhaled deeply and something in his eyes changed. Then that settled. We'll discuss the matter later in more detail, Kakashi-kun. Kakashi didn't miss the use of his given name the Hokage approved. He hid the joy from his face, but his chakra flickered, excited. I am humbled by your generosity, Kakashi said and meant every word of it. I trust you'll stay on until a replacement for your team has been picked? Already taken care of, Kakashi assured him, idly wondering what Genma would think of being promoted and with another infamous genius on his team. You're lying, Tenza said flatly, not even bothering to look up from his whetstone. Captain would never do that, not without telling us. I'm telling you, I heard this straight from the Nara with the grasshopper mask, straight off of guard duty, Genma said, fiddling with the wrappings on his legs. Nara Shurikato needs to learn to keep his mouth shut, Reida said easily, lifting his chest plate with a hand and holding it up to the light. Cracked again, he muttered, squinting at the bright fluorescent light. If you didn't go about charging at every enemy knee like an idiot, you wouldn't be going through so many, Genma said, ripping off tape with his teeth. So, what do you think? I think it's a sack of shit, Reida said, letting his armor drop on the worktable with a thump. The only person more devoted to the Corps is the commander, and we all know that captain's next in line for that anyway. ANBU's his life. He's our captain, Tenza said, as if it explained everything. Genma had to admit, the rumor did sound outlandish, and no matter if Nara had sworn up, down, and sideways that it was true. This was Hatake Kakashi they were talking about. Only the commander and a few of the veterans had served longer than him. Captain quitting would be like the sky suddenly turning green, or the Uchiha suddenly turning nice. Impossible. The three were given a quick rap on the door before the topic of their conversation sailed into the room, scroll in hand. Yo, he said. Captain, Tenza greeted him instantly. Genma made a face at Reidu. Yo, he mouthed, Saban almost falling out of his mouth. Reidu shrugged in response, looking just as confused. Congratulations, Genma, Hatake Kakashi said. You've just been promoted to captain of Delta Squad. This time the Saban really did fall out of his mouth. Dango? Hatake Kakashi, son of the White Fang, former ANBU hound, and student of the late Yondaime Hokage, offered Uchiha Itachi a skewer. Thank you, Itachi said politely and took it with slight, calloused hands. So I've been thinking, Kakashi said vaguely, gesturing at the surroundings with the used skewer. The slight piece of wood looked positively lethal in his hands. Would you like to join a top-secret organization of ninja dedicated to keeping the peace for Konoha and get a cool tattoo? Itachi chewed on his sweets, considering the offer. This is very sudden, he said. Yeah, Kakashi agreed, twirling the skewer in his hands. Some of the neighboring shinobi looked at him nervously. Itachi calmly sipped at his tea. But I figured, you're young, talented, and probably dying for a chance to really challenge yourself. Not really, Itachi said. Would you do it if I asked you to join only because I want to annoy my old teammates? Itachi seemed to briefly consider the idea, his brow puckering. No, refusing my offer as a subtle act of rebellion against your clan elders isn't very smart, Kakashi said easily, as if they were just discussing the weather. Tea? He offered, picking up the smoking teapot to the side. I don't understand, Itachi said, and he picked up his cup, accepting a refill with lowered eyes. Why are you doing this, Hatake-san? Did you know your uncle? Kakashi asked suddenly, propping his chin on a hand. No, Itachi said, seemingly undisturbed by the non sequitur. He passed away shortly before my time, during the Third Shinobi War. Uchiha Obito, Kakashi said in a quiet voice, putting the skewer down. was my teammate. And he asked me to protect the village, to protect the team, and to help me. He gave me a gift. He tapped at his forehead protector, slanted to cover his left eye. I need your help to protect the village, Uchiha-kun. But, for the first time during their conversation, Kakashi cut Itachi off, his voice impatient. I know about your damned clan politics, Itachi. And I know that things are damned complicated right now and that they're dragging you into the bloody mess, hoping you'll be able to fix it, one way or another. His voice softened and Kakashi tapped again at his forehead protector, this time on the engraved insignia. The clan is the village, and the village is the clan. Protect Konoha and protect the Uchiha, even if it means from themselves. Joining the Corps will help you, if you do it on your own terms. Itachi gave him a long, considering look, and Kakashi could almost catch a flicker of red in dark black eyes. You are very informed, Itachi said. It's my job to be, Kakashi said grimly. Things are coming to a head, Uchiha-kun. The Corps is being poisoned from the inside, and there are rumors that the Uchiha are unhappy. Konoha will tear itself apart if everything comes to a head, and it's my job to ensure that doesn't happen. The Corps? Itachi asked delicately, sipping at his lukewarm tea. It's very much tied with clan politics, Kakashi said. Other than that, I can't say much. The unsaid but if you join hung heavy in the air. My father would be pleased with my acceptance, Itachi said, tapping idly on his teacup. I accept, Kakashi heard, the soft clink of nail on porcelain resolving itself into a message. I'm sure he would be, Kakashi said, fiercely relieved that the gamble he had made paid. He hid a feral grin under his mask. Danza had better watch out. Captain? Not your captain anymore, Kakashi corrected Tenzu gently, shifting over on the bed to make room. His kunai were all sealed and packed, armor and ninjato carefully packed into a trunk with Sensei's kunai, father's tanto and Obito's goggles. He still had to deal with the linen, the wall hangings Kushina-san had given him, and, is there something wrong? Kakashi asked nonchalantly, carefully monitoring Tenzu's chakra. Cap Hataki Tenzu made a choke sort of noise. I don't know what you are anymore, he said, sounding wretched. Hataki Kakashi, he said, and carefully telegraphed his move, letting Tenzu see the reassuring pat come. And your friend, but you're leaving. No one ever really leaves ANBU, Kakashi said and awkwardly rubbed Tenzu's shoulder. By the Shodai, he'd forgotten how young Tenzu was. 15, 16? Uncomfortable in his own skin and wary of the world, he'd forgotten how skittish Tenzu had been when he was younger, how Orochimaru had carved uncertainty and fear into his heart, and then abandoned him to an unknown world. I'll still be around, he promised, entertaining thoughts of murdering Orochimaru in the back of his head. I'm just moving down to the apartment complex a few blocks over, you know, in the subsidized housing area in the Bunkyo ward. You're welcome to visit any time you'd like, he said. Thank you, Tenzu said awkwardly, shoulders hunched. Ha Hataki-san. Senpai, Kakashi corrected. You're still my kohai, aren't you, rookie? Of course, Kakashi-senpai. Tenzu gave him a watery smile and Kakashi was struck by an idea. Tenzu, he said quietly. Have you noticed them? The boy's chakra flickered. So you have, then, Kakashi said, more than a little proud. They remind me of some of the others that he worked on, Tenzu said in a very quiet voice, face as white as a ghost. Yes, Kakashi said grimly. They do seem strange, don't they? Always conveniently there to replace a fallen member, and each one of them has been nominated by Shimura Danza for acceptance into the service. Tenzu's face, if at all possible, whitened even more. You don't mean Dash? ANBU is changing, Kakashi said. And not for the better. Keep an eye out for me, Tenzu. Of course, sir, Tenzu said obediently. Kakashi-senpai, he added a beat later and Kakashi was tempted to ruffle the boy's hair. Pack, the voice in the back of his mind whispered. Protect the pack. ANBU guards will be assigned to watch him during your absences. I trust you've drawn up the appropriate seals for the apartment? Kakashi withdrew a packet from his flak vest and handed it over to the Hokage. It's not the best I can do, but given the time frame and materials, I could only come up with so much, he said apologetically, beating back the urge to kick the floor like some genin. I'll do much better with more time and a better sense of Uzumaki, he added hastily, watching the Hokage's bushy brows slowly rise towards his receding hairline. This is very impressive work, the Sandaime said, fingers tracing the kanji with an expert touch. It's adequate, Kakashi shrugged. Now if really had the time and chakra blood ink and some of Minato-sensei's books, he could do proper justice to those security seals. He had one in mind that would cauterize shut the chakra coils of any intruders and another interesting one that electrocuted at a wrong touch. More than adequate, the Hokage said and handed the packet back to Kakashi. The funds will be wired to your account on a monthly basis, and you are given a 2-month leave from the active duty roster to adjust to your new role. Kakashi nodded, expecting as much. Anything else, Hokage-sama? This is very sudden of you, Kakashi-kun, the Hokage said, folding his hands together and settling them in his lap. Kakashi blinked. Sir, you've served me very well as a shinobi, Kakashi-kun, as a jounin of Konoha and as an ANBU operative. But never before now have you showed any interest in Naruto-kun. Kakashi's chest tightened as he considered his options. 20-year-old Kakashi was perfectly happy to ignore the face of his dead sensei come back to life, throwing himself into every available mission. No wonder that the Hokage thought his actions strange. They were, for his younger self. He could lie, make up a tale about how he befriended Naruto, mutter something about forgiveness and remembering the past, or he could tell the truth. Minato-sensei was Kakashi began slowly and then stopped, caught by uncertainty. After father passed, he became. He searched for the right words to explain how Minato had kept Kakashi alive, had taken him in and gave him a purpose. Family, he considered, but that wasn't quite right too. It didn't explain how Minato-sensei had taught him how to kill a man in order to protect the village, in order to protect himself. It didn't explain how Minato-sensei had chosen Kakashi and how Kakashi had chosen him. Sandaime-sama knew where this was heading. Kakashi could smell the grief on him, fresh as it was 6 years ago in the wake of Kyuubi's attack. Minato-sensei was gone, and that meant everyone was gone. Everyone in his pack, dead, and Kakashi had nothing to live, no pack to protect and live for. I was selfish and I didn't want to think about Naruto, about Sensei's son. I couldn't bear to look at him and see everyone I'd lost, Kakashi said in a low voice, shame trickling through. I joined the ANBU and for 6 very long years, I did the best I could. To forget. To protect the village, like Sensei and Obito wanted me to. Sandaime-sama nodded. I understand, Kakashi-kun, he said quietly. Kakashi shook his head. There was more to tell, and it was strangely cathartic to hear it aloud, to have the Hokage listen and understand. The last mission was difficult, he said. I was very tired and emotionally compromised. I should have refused the mission, if only for the safety for my team, but I went and tried to complete it, only to be caught in a genjutsu. It was careless of me. He looked down at his gloved hands, unable to bear looking at the Hokage. It was a very good one, he said blankly. The more experienced the shinobi, the better the illusion. It brought all the worst fear and terrors out of the mind and made them real. It was only due to the skill of my team that I woke up with my mind intact. Kakashi rubbed at the armored plate on his glove absently. I saw Naruto in there, abandoned and alone. Minato-sensei was pack and Naruto is his son. Naruto's pack, he said. I have a duty to him. He would be very proud of you, the Hokage said quietly. Kakashi, for all that he was 30 years old and a hardened jounin, clung to words like a child clung to a blanket. Thank you, sir, he said, voice thickening only slightly. You may find it a duty to his father, but my hope is that you will grow to care for him on his own merits, the Hokage continued, dark eyes piercing. Kakashi smiled for the first time since he entered the sealed room. Oh, I don't doubt that, Hokage-sama, he assured him and made a note to stop by Chiraka later tonight. Chapter 3. He's in there, the matron said, jerking her head towards the closet. Knows he's in trouble, so he's gone and disappeared himself, quick-like. Frogs in the beds, Kakashi guessed, judging by the high-pitched screaming from the next room over. Snakes and spiders. The matron sighed and wiped her hands on her apron. Uzumaki Naruto, she said sternly, her voice rising. There's someone here to meet you. Get out of the closet, quickly. Done wanna, Uzumaki, if you don't get out in 5 seconds. Kakashi laid a hand on her arm and smiled at her. I'll handle this, Hori-san, he said pleasantly and made his casual way towards the door, hands shoved into his pockets. He's a stubborn brat, the matron warned him, her dark eyes looking at him beadily. Bad enough that he's the damned. Kakashi's pleasant smile turned a shade harder. I believe that's enough, he said quietly, and the air in the room suddenly became much, much heavier. You may leave now. The matron swallowed and gripped at her pink apron, knuckles whitening. Of course, Hataki-san, she said stiffly and swept out of the room without a second glance. Kakashi leaned against the closet door and watched her go with a wary eye, making sure that her chakra signature moved away from the room. You can come out now, he said after a long moment. She's gone away to deal with your prank. The door opened a crack and Kakashi obliged, moving out of the way. He crouched down and caught the tiniest sliver of a blue eye looking up at him. Naruto. For a long moment, his heart caught in his throat and he couldn't think of anything to say. I'm sorry I failed you and the pack sorry. He cleared his throat instead. Who are you? The boy behind the door asked rudely, blue-eye keen. Hatake Kakashi, Kakashi said automatically, and a small part of him was bemused at how high-pitched and squeaky Naruto's voice was. It was familiar, in a way Naruto at 16 wasn't. He'd missed seeing his student grow and change, and when he'd come back in black and orange, his deepened voice had been a bit of an unpleasant shock. That's a weird name, Naruto said suspiciously. So's Naruto, Kakashi countered, rocking back on his heels. Is not. Naruto's the coolest name in the village, Naruto said fiercely, and in his excitement pushed open the door, nearly clipping Kakashi's nose. Uzumaki Naruto, he boasted, jabbing a thumb at his skinny chest. Number 1 prankster, snakes and spiders, Anyone can do that, Kakashi said, and narrowly missed an enthusiastic flailing arm in his eye for it. Jiro couldn't, and he was the one who dared me cause he's a dumb sissy, Naruto said enthusiastically, hopping up and down in his dirty and bedraggled sandals. But I did, and it's the greatest bestest prank ever, so there. I bet you could do better, Kakashi said, and without even realizing it, reached out and ruffled Naruto's hair. The boy squawked and beat at his arm with his tiny hands, and Kakashi felt something soft and warm settle in the bottom of his chest. What are you being so nice to me for anyhow? Naruto said after recovering from the hair-ruffling attack, looking up with vaguely suspicious eyes. Big peoplery never nice to me. In the back of Kakashi's head, he quietly resolved to find every person who'd been cruel to his student and kill them slowly. Well, he said, scratching the back of his head casually. I'm not a very nice person, so you ain't being nice? Naruto scrunched up his nose. You're so weird. Yeah, Kakashi agreed. What do you say we go have some ramen? Naruto looked up at him, mouth wide open. It was possible that stars began to glow in his eyes. Ramen, he whispered up at the older man reverently. We're gonna eat ramen? Well, if you want to, Kakashi said, looking faintly worried. Naruto launched himself at Kakashi's legs and nearly bowled him over. Yeah! He cheered. Ramen. Kakashi's hand hovered hesitantly over Naruto's back before it settled down on a bony shoulder, patting it gently, if a little awkwardly. There's this ramen stand on Main St that I'll think you'll like, Naruto-kun. It's called Ichiraka, and don't just stand there like an idiot, Kakashi said, tilting his head curiously. Cap Kakashi-senpai. Tenza said, and he rocked a little nervously on his feet, which for him was very nearly the equivalent of him clutching his chest dramatically. I didn't realize you were standing behind me. Well, you were looking so intently at the door. Kakashi shrugged, and a bag of groceries swung gently in his hand. Would you like to come in? Tenza gave him a small smile. I'd like that, senpai, he said quietly. He stepped back from the apartment door as Kakashi casually flicked through a series of hand seals, the door jamb glowing a dull blue for a brief moment before fading back to a normal brown. A-rank security seals, senpai, Tenza noted, his dark eyes keen. I have important things that I'd like to keep an eye on, Kakashi said, and opened the door. Within seconds, his important thing collided violently with his knees, a blur of yellow and orange and brown fur. Kakashi and ISAN, Naruto bellowed, and Rai added to the chaos with his own happy yips. You're home. Hello, Naruto-kun, Kakashi said mildly and bent down, patting Naruto's spiky hair. The bag of groceries hit the floor with a clunk and Rai's ears picked up. Food, he barked excitedly and dashed over to the bag. Hey, Kakashi protested as Ryu dug through the bag with his large black nose. Ryu, no, that's going to be our dinner. Tenzu rescued their food with a deft hand, winding his way around Ryu's wriggling body with an ease that came with long experience. Hello, Ryu-chan, Tenzu greeted the dog warmly, scratching at his tattered ears. It's been a while, hasn't it? Ryu agreed enthusiastically, drooling spectacularly all over his Kohai's face. You would hardly think that he was a ferocious 100-pound Niken if you looked at him now, wriggling about like an overgrown puppy. Hey, Anai-san, who's this? Naruto regarded Tenzu with curiosity, twisting around Kakashi's legs to peer up at the stranger with wide eyes. He's a ninja! He shouted, catching Tenzu's forehead protector. Like you, Kakashi Anai-san. Tenzu's eyes widened a fraction, and he gave Kakashi a look. Kakashi smiled back at him, his eye curving cheerfully. Naruto-kun, this is Tenzu. He's a friend of mine. Interest piqued, Naruto sidled up to the older boy, hands clasped behind his back. You're Kakashi Anai-san's friend? He asked seriously. He's my senpai, Tenzu just as gravely, and bent down a little, bracing his hands on his thighs. A senpai? What's a senpai? Like a friend, Tenzu considered, his eyes thoughtful. But also like an older brother too. Someone who's more experienced and older than you at school or at work. Huh, Naruto said and then tugged expectantly on Tenzu's pants. Come on, I'll show you the cool shuriken Ai-san bought me. They're super sharp so's we have to extra careful, but Kakashi and I said we could train with them, and then next year I'm going to go to the academy and become a ninja like you and Ai-san. Kakashi watched with a quiet amusement as Naruto dragged a rather overwhelmed Tenzu to his room, Raya following the two obediently, tail wagging. Protect them, the voice in the back of head whispered. You promised. He thought this was a good start. Tenzu groped for the right words, cupping his mug of tea. Kakashi nodded in agreement. He's Naruto, he said simply and sipped at his tea. He reminds me of Uzumaki-san, Tenzu said, absently rubbing the rim of his cup. She was very kind to me when Yandeme-sama brought me to the hospital. It was hard to describe Kushina-san. Bright and angry and so strong. She'd bought him ramen and read him the tale of the gutsy ninja during hospital stays. She was the one who had taught him his first seal, a simple protective symbol that could be carved into wood. And so very much like her son, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto reminds me of her, Tenzu said wistfully. When he smiles. Tenzu's eyes sharpened and he looked up at Kakashi, eyes missing nothing. You left for him. It wasn't a question. Kakashi's silence was answer enough. Tenzu breathed out slowly and then smiled, hiding it behind a quick sip of tea. It's good to see you of the armor, he said. How's Genma doing? Kakashi asked lazily, accepting Tenzu's tacit approval. Terribly well, Tenzu grinned and Kakashi could see traces of Yamato's demon face in his eyes. The rookie was growing up. He hates it of course, complaining about the paperwork and the responsibility, but he's doing well. Genma was already modeling the team as it was. The position just gave him a little more authority to do so. Kakashi was silently grateful that he didn't have to listen to Genma nag about chakra exhaustion at him. And the rookie? Bugs in his locker, mud on his armor and fake exploding tags on his kunai, Tenzu said proudly, looking very glad to lose rookie status after a good 8 months of ribbing from the other members of Delta Squad. I bet he's enjoying that, Kakashi said dryly. He set this genjutsu on Reida-san when we were at the mess hall, made him think he was talking to Kyoko-san, Tenzu said, eyes bright. The tea sloshed a little in his cup as he leaned back in his chair in satisfaction. He was flirting with a salt shaker the entire time. Clever Itachi. He's a good boy, Kakashi said. Even if he did beat my record, he's not as good as you, of course, Tenzu said loyally. Though he's very good on the field. That was high praise from a boy who could grow a forest within minutes and kill a man with a twig. He's very polite, very helpful, Kakashi said and set his tea down, casually checking Naruto's chakra to make sure he was asleep. A good person to have by your side. Oh? Tenzu replied lightly, but his interested face betrayed him. I noticed that you were the one to nominate him for service. Well, I couldn't let someone else come and lead him astray, could I? He needed a challenge, and I gave him one. Before he found something else to do, like massacring his entire family. Itachi'd been talking about a new dango place that opened in Sumiya, Tenzu said thoughtfully. Lunch there might be interesting. Yes, I would think so, Kakashi agreed. Everything else going smoothly? Commander called a mandatory meeting yesterday. Kakashi raised an eyebrow and crossed his arms over his chest. Oh? He said mildly. Councilman Danza was with him, Tenzu said. They wanted to speak about the difficult times and how the village could only be as strong as the shadows that protected it. Typical morale boosting, though Commander didn't look very happy to be there. And right after I've left, Kakashi said, leaning on the back 2 legs of his chair. So inconsiderate of the man. You and Commander are the only ones he's ever really been scared of, Tenzu said, looking intently at the wooden table separating the two. And now that you've left, Commander's tied up with council politics. How many new members? 4. Kakashi hummed, non-committal. Altogether, judging by the personnel files Kakashi had discreetly looked through after his visit to the Hokage. He couldn't help it if the secret records room was so poorly secured. It was practically begging to be opened. That made about 1/10 of ANBU. With 10 active operatives and who knew how many more Danza had smuggled in even more discreetly and was in the process of training? And me only gone a week, Kakashi said. No doubt Danza was quickly capitalizing on his absence, though he wondered what the spies were thinking of Kakashi's sudden domestic turn. Probably nothing good. Well, I didn't want to do this, Kakashi sighed, pained, and picked up his now tepid cup of tea, knocking it back down in one quick swallow. But Danza's just asking for it, isn't he? Tenzu looked like a rabid wolf had just cornered him. I'm very, very glad that I'm not Councilman Danza right now. Yes, that's probably a good thing, Kakashi said, nodding serenely. Otherwise, I would have to cut your stomach and strangle you with your own intestines. Tenzu choked on his tea. Math is stupid, Naruto said, flinging himself dramatically onto the couch and knocking Kakashi's brand new copy of Ika Ika Paradise onto the floor. I was reading that, Kakashi said mildly. How was school today? Burring, Naruto said, stretching out the word with feeling. I want to go to the academy and learn cool jutsu and stuff, not the stupid boring school with math. How are you going to know how many kanai you have left if you don't know math? Kakashi asked, picking up his book from the floor, reflexively checking that Naruto hadn't seen the erotic illustration of Keiko on page 69. Whatever, Naruto said dismissively and wiggled over to Kakashi's lap, planting his bony elbows on the older man's thighs, not catching the way the silver-haired man stiffened. All we do is sit down and it's stupid, I hate it, he said. Ah, Kakashi said and mentally referred to Raising Children, a shinobi's guide to rearing, ages 6 to 12. Why is it stupid? He asked delicately, wondering if there was a way to hammer the idea of personal space into a child's head without sharp, pointy objects. His own father had rarely touched him and Kakashi had become a genin at age 5 and thrown into war, where the only time he touched someone was to kill them. He'd often had to remind himself that ruffling hair and hugs were a way to express affection, instead of a tool to purposely annoy his students. Naruto muttered something inaudible. Kakashi gently patted Naruto's head. Is it Kigo again? Naruto looked up at him with watery blue eyes and snot trickling out of his grubby nose. He says I'm a demon monster, and that I'm worse than dirt, and he buried his face into Kakashi's flak vest and started crying great heaving sobs. First, Kakashi thought distantly, I'm going to hunt down Kigo's parents and put them under the most painful genjutsu I can think of and then cut off all the limbs in front of their son. Then I'm going to. Am I? Naruto wailed, hands clutching Kakashi's shirt sleeve. I done wanna be a monster, Kakashi and I'm not a monster, I done wanna You're not a monster, Kakashi said firmly and rubbed Naruto's back in rough circles. You're a 6-year-old boy who likes ramen and pranking too much to be a monster. Kigo's wrong, Naruto-kun. He's wrong. But why does everyone hate me? Naruto sniffled, dribbling snot and tears and saliva all over his vest. Kakashi supposed that it was better than blood and piss. That I can't tell you, Kakashi said after a long silence. It's very complicated, and it's something I can only tell you when you're much older. But I can tell you that not everyone hates you. What about me? And Sandaime-sama? And Tenzu? And Raya? Really? You don't hate me? Naruto said hopefully and scrambled upright in his lap, craning his neck up to meet Kakashi's eyes. I could never hate you, Kakashi said quietly and gently wiped Naruto's nose with the end of his sleeve. I don't hate you either, Naruto said a little shyly and launched himself at Kakashi's neck, squeezing tight. If Obito's eyes started secreting tears, well, Kakashi figured it was the Sharingan acting up again, chakra coils irritated. He ignored the fact that his other eye, his normal one, was tearing up as well. Just dust. Chakra irritation. His arms closed around Naruto's tiny body and held him tight. Hey forehead, what are you reading? Some dumb book again, huh? Gonna be a ninja, dumb forehead girl like you? Dust rose up in her eyes and Sakura blinked furiously, trying to hide behind the large book she'd borrowed from the library. Look, she's trying to hide her big ugly face behind the book. Too bad it's too small to cover it. Sakura shrank even more and desperately wished that the ground would open and swallow her. She'd read about some jutsu that could do that, but she didn't know the hand seals or have the chakra. She was just some dumb civilian girl with a big ugly face. Even when she scrunched her eyes tight, the tears came. Look, look! The dumb girl's crying. Look at her stupid crying face. More dust came flying at her and little pebbles and sticks, some thrown hard enough to scrape her cheeks. You can't hide from us, ugly forehead. You big dumb bully! Sakura peeked up from behind her book and saw a small blonde whirlwind rocket into Ami's face, fists flying furiously. You shut up about her. Ami staggered back, blood spurting from her nose, knocking Miko and Kyoko right onto the ground. My knee! Miko screeched, clutching piteously at the tiny scrape on her leg. Good, Sakura thought viciously and lowered her book even more. You stupid demon monster! Ami shrieked, clutching her nose. I'm going to tell Papa and he's going to hurt you so bad. Naya, Naya, Naya! The blonde boy sneered, sticking his tongue out and stuffing his thumbs in his ears. Sakura stifled a giggle. Tattletale, Tattletale, run away Tattletale, he chanted, hopping from one foot to another. Ami gave him one murderous look before stomping away, Miko and Kyoko quick to jump up and follow obediently at her heels. You okay? Her blonde hero scratched his head sheepishly, and up close, Sakura could see that it was Uzumaki Naruto, class clown and troublemaker from the temple school. He always played by himself and made stupid fart jokes, and none of the girls liked him, especially stupid Ami. But he had called Ami dumb and punched her nose, saving Sakura. She put down her book and swallowed nervously. Thank you, she muttered and patted her bangs down over her forehead. Hey, I'm Naruto. What's your name? Sakura, she said shyly and stood up, wiping the dust off her face with a grubby sleeve. We're in class together at school, she added in a quiet voice. Eh? Naruto squinted at her and leaned in, whiskers all scrunched up. We are? Yeah, Sakura nodded. You got in trouble today for punching Kigo, remember? Kakashi and I said if I had a reason then I can punch anyone all the time ever. Naruto said defiantly, hands at his hips, chest puffed out. Really? Naruto deflated. I think so? He scratched his head. Kakashi and I used lots of long words and stuff, but he definitely said I could punch him. My mama doesn't like it when I get dirty and fight, Sakura offered and poked at her dirty dress a little sadly. But getting dirty and punching is the bestest ever, Naruto said, hopping up and down on his feet. Hey, you wanna play with me? We have a Niken back home and lots of cool books, and Kakashi and I got me shuriken and stuff so's I can train and become the Hokage. Niken? Sakura asked, her ears pricking up. Isn't that like a ninja dog? Yup, Naruto grinned and jammed his hands in his pockets. Wanna come? Sakura considered the boy in front of her, grubby with dirt all over his face and a big open grin and blood on his knuckles. Okay, she said and gave him a small smile. This is very sudden, Sandaime-sama said, his face unreadable. Kakashi shrugged. It is my right, Hokage-sama, he said simply, standing easily in front of the most powerful man in the 5 shinobi nations without batting a lash. Of course, Sandaime-sama said slowly. But there hasn't been one in over 15 years, Kakashi-kun. Well, then I guess it's about time that I've gotten around to the duty, right? Kakashi asked vaguely, surreptitiously flicking through the pages of Ika in his hand. Are you sure? This will be quite a surprise to many of the council members. Good to keep people on their toes, Kakashi said, eye curving up. Sandaime-sama smiled, the craggy lines of his face shifting subtly. Oh, I think I'll very much enjoy having you around, Kakashi-kun. The seat in between the Uchiha and Hyuga had lain empty for over 15 years, a constant reminder of the consequences of one misstep. Over the years, members of the council came and went, but the seat stayed empty, the clan reduced to a member of one who refused the title of head. There were discreet running bets on when the chair would disappear, and judging by the one ninja left in the clan, Fugaku figured it was only a matter of time before the chair would be replaced by one of the other clans competing for a seat on the council. Needless to say, it was a surprise when a cloud of smoke suddenly swirled around the Hataki chair next to him, and a body puffed into existence. Fugaku had a kunai at the intruder's throat and Sharingan activated before he realized that he was looking at Hataki Kakashi's masked face. Yo, the boy said cheerfully, ignoring the blade at his jugular. Sorry I'm late, I had to help an old lady cross the street. Fugaku lowered his arm robotically and sheathed his weapon. Every single clan head at the table stared at the suddenly occupied chair. Ah, Sandaime-sama said calmly. Hello, Hataki-dano, Hokage-sama, Hataki Kakashi greeted. Uchiha-dano, he said, inclining his head at Fugaku. Great reflexes, he said happily. Hataki Kakashi, Fugaku said dully, and he could see Hayashi, the pale-eyed bastard, reflexively grip his armrests, knuckles widening. What are you doing here, whelp? Some snarled from across the table. The Inuzuka always had a touchy relationship with the Hataki, feeling that the Hataki infringed upon their territory and abilities. His father had told him this over dinner a long time ago, when Hataki Tsukumo had sat on council meetings, but it had become irrelevant when Fugaku had taken the Uchiha seat, Tsukumo long gone and Kakashi too young. It seemed that would no longer be the case. Well, Hataki drawled, arranging himself bonelessly in the uncomfortable hardwood chair. What do you think I'm here for? You've had the right to attend council meetings and take upon the duties of clan head since you were 15, but you've never chosen to exercise it before, Shikaka said from his seat near the Hokage at the head of the table, dark eyes curious. Well, now that it's declassified, I can safely say that I was serving ANBU at the time and could not properly carry out my duties, Kakashi said, looking supremely bored. Fugaku could see a hint of orange peeking out from the Jounin's vest pocket. You have no clan to speak of, Aburame spoke quietly from his seat, glasses reflecting the fluorescent light. You are head of nothing, leader of a family long gone. Now, that is very rude, Kakashi said reprovingly, hands laced together on the table. I'll have you know I've recently adopted a ward. Danzu, the power-grabbing warmonger, finally spoke up, Fugaku noted with ill-hidden distaste. You have managed to gain custody of the Nine Tails, the old frog croaked. He is a weapon, not some orphan you can pick off the streets. Fugaku could see degrees of shock flicker across every face in the room, with the exception of the Hokage and Hatake himself. Interesting, he mused and filed the thought away for further consideration. Well, for a supposed weapon, he's been treated like shit, Hatake said, leaning his head back on the chair. The Yondaime would have wanted the village to protect and care for him, as the hero he rightly is. What would you know of the Yondaime's wishes? Some snarled, claws tapping on the table scored with kunai and years of ink marks. Hatake was the former student of Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Fugaku interrupted and played his first card. Inuzuka Dano. Some bared her canines at him. The Nine Tails has been present in the village since the Shodai's time, Shikaka put in lazily. A weapon that all the other hidden villages have feared. The only difference is that now the entire village knows about it, instead of just the council. The Yondaime gave us our greatest gift back to us with the cost of his life. It's only right we should take care of him and treat him not only as a weapon but as the child he is, Kakashi said. He's 6. The air in the room grew noticeably colder and Fugaku squashed the urge to flinch. By the Shodai, the bratling beside him was strong. He is a threat to the village, Danza said, thumping his cane on the floor. Either he should be eliminated or trained into the tool that he is. Shinobi may be tools, Akimichi Chuza rumbled from his seat, but in Konoha we treat our people with pride and respect. The boy is a child and a gift from the Yondaime, as Shikaka Dano says. Akimichi nodded his head at the Nara. Fugaku's lip curled. Here was the infamous Ino-Shikacho alliance coming into play. I accept Hatake Kakashi's custody of the child. It seemed that the boy had the trio on his side and was deliberately antagonizing Danzu. Fugaku considered the cards in his hands. Already, power was shifting in this room, all around this strange little boy. The enemy of thine enemy is an ally, an old Iron War philosopher had written, and Fugaku certainly despised Danzu enough to consider him an enemy, always sidelining the power of the Uchiha and restricting their movements. He decided to go all in. I moved to accept Hatake Kakashi as head of the Hatake clan and a formal member of the council, he announced, and quietly reveled in the sharp intakes of breath he could hear. Motion recognized, Sandaime-sama spoke for the first time, puffing away at his pipe. Any seconding motions? Nara raised his head. I second. Yamanaka and Akimichi nodded their heads as well, quietly muttering their assent. Next to Hatake, Hayashi tilted his head. I also second this motion. It was done. 5 clan heads had accepted Hatake's brat as well as the Hokage himself. With a keen eye, Fugaku realized that this was what the Hokage had planned from the start. Already the alliances in the clan were shifting, the old ways gone and shattered to pieces when Kakashi had appeared into the room with a cheerful smile. Clever, Fugaku allowed and cast a sidelong glance at Danzu. The old coot looked immeasurably displeased. Fugaku hid a smile. This would prove to be a very interesting month. Kakashi leaned casually against the table as everyone filtered out of the room, meeting dismissed. Sure pissed off the councilman there, he commented idly. Fugaku, the dry old stick, looked at him murderously. The councilman and I are not on the best of terms, he said stiffly. Yeah, me either, Kakashi agreed and crossed his arms across his chest. Still gunning for the top, isn't he? I wouldn't know, Fugaku sneered and pushed his chair in. Know what I think? Kakashi leaned in closer confidingly. I think he totally has it in for you. Terrified of what you might do to him. Without realizing it, Fugaku came closer as well. Kakashi hid a grin behind his mask. Hook, line and sinker. With power comes fear and respect. It's only right that he feels such towards the Uchiha. Above all else, Danza values loyalty, Kakashi said cryptically, shrugging his shoulders. Loyalty to his Konoha. The Uchiha are sworn to serve the Hokage and the village through an age-old alliance, Fugaku said, red flickering in his eyes. We are loyal. Oh, I'm sure you are, Kakashi assured him, putting as much false flattery into his voice as he could muster. After all, the village is the clan and the clan is the village. The Uchiha would only hurt themselves by going against Konoha. Of course, Fugaku said, looking a little off-kilter. Anyway, I wanted to thank you for what you did, Kakashi continued, his eye curving. You didn't have to support me in my bid. It was for the benefit of the council, Fugaku said, his voice hard. I appreciate it all the same, as does the Hokage, Kakashi lied smoothly. He knows what you're trying to do, protecting the village and Naruto and all. Naruto? You know him. My ward. Kakashi brightened. Say, would you like to visit him? You have a son around his age, don't you? Ah, yes. Fugaku blinked. His name's Sasuke. His face warmed a little and his lips curled up a fraction. He'll be attending the academy next year, he said proudly. Kakashi was a little astonished to see that the other man had some sort of heart. Great, he said cheerily, recovering quickly. I'm sure they'd love to meet. How does next Sunday sound? Your place? Dinner? What? Fugaku blinked again. Great. Kakashi made a hand seal and let chakra surge around him, enveloping him in a familiar embrace. I'll see you then, Fugaku-sama. Kakashi slouched, hands shoved tightly in his pocket. He'd forgotten how exhausting it was to talk to people and pretend like he'd enjoyed it. He very much preferred hand signals and a threatening sharp pointy object in his hand. Clan head. He rolled the idea around in his head considering he'd never taken up the job before because, well, it had been his father's job. And when he died, there was no point, not when the Hitaki name was smeared with the blood of the Third Shinobi War. But now, for Naruto, for the people he died for, there were 2 chakra presences inside the apartment. Kakashi instinctively palmed a kunai and pressed a palm against the seal, flooding it with chakra. They were undisturbed. Naruto had used the key and put his hand on the unlocking seal normally. His chakra was fine, no sense of turmoil or anxiety. In fact, it looked excited. With a frown, Kakashi probed the 2 tiny flames in the house. The other presence was familiar, the signature like an old favorite shirt he'd lost but found again, hiding in some hidden corner of his drawer. The chakra spiked again and Kakashi's heart caught in throat. Sakura. Hesitantly, he put his kunai away and unlocked the door, chest tight. Naruto? He called out, hoping that the boy didn't catch the way his voice trembled. I'm home, Kakashi and I. Came the familiar shout, and a tangled mess of boy and dog scampered across the hallway and straight at his knees. He reflexively braced his feet with chakra and caught the 2 with careful, welcoming hands. Hello, Naruto, he said, and for the first time all day, his guard slipped. It's very good to see you. You're back, you're back. Naruto bellowed into his ear, Ryu enthusiastically licking his other one. I'm here, Kakashi said and ruffled Naruto's bright yellow hair. He looked up and caught a glimpse of something pink around the corner before it disappeared with a squeak. Do you have something to tell me? He asked, standing up and walking down the hallway. Naruto stuck to his leg like burr. Oh yeah, Naruto said, grinning so widely that his eyes turned into little blue slits. I brought a friend over and her name is Sakura and she knows all the coolest things about ninja and we were playing with Ride and Kakashi turned around the corner and caught sight of his little pink-haired student sitting politely at a kitchen chair, cheeks flushed a deep red. Hello, Sakura-chan, he said and smiled. It's very nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Sakura squeaked, covering her face with her hands. Naruto untangled himself from Kakashi's leg and ran over to Sakura, nearly crashing right into the chair legs. Hey Sakura-chan, this is Kakashi and I-san. He's the bestest ever in the whole world ever, and he's the strongest ninja in the village. The look of embarrassment shifted into wonder, and Kakashi rubbed the back of his neck, inordinately pleased at the sight of his 2 little students before him. Well, I'm not that great, Naruto-kun, he said lamely. Would you like to stay for dinner? Sakura and Naruto brightened at the same time, pink and yellow twins. I'd love to, but my mama, her face paled. I forgot to tell mama that I came over here to play. Her green eyes filled up with tears and Naruto looked over at Kakashi, face pleading. Kakashi felt something in him give. Alright, then we'll just have to let her know then, okay? He said and bit down on his thumb, hands running through seals with an easy familiarity. He slammed his hand down on the floor, and when the smoke cleared, he could see Pakin's familiar grouchy face. Boss, Pakin drawled, and Kakashi could hear Sakura and Naruto's twin gasps of surprise. Pakin, Kakashi grinned, chakra spiking with pleasure. It's good to see you. Yeah, the dog muttered and twisted around, giving Naruto and Sakura a suspicious look. You whelped? I'll explain later, Kakashi muttered hurriedly and gestured over at Naruto. Pencil and paper please, Naruto-kun. Naruto scampered off to the desk in the living room and came back panting, pencil clenched in his mouth and stacks of paper in his hands. He accepted it with a muttered thanks and scrawled a quick note to Haruno-san, saying that Sakura was playing with Naruto and would stay over for dinner, and he would personally escort her home later. Kakashi signed it with a flourish and a tiny heno mahiji and rolled it up. Take this over to Haruno, Sakura's mother. Sakura, where do you live? Bunkyo Ward, Cherry Tree St, number 676, Sakura recited, hands clasped together on her lap. There, Kakashi said and handed the paper over to Pain. Straight to Sakura-chan's mother, you understand? You owe me an explanation. Pain growled with feeling and disappeared in a puff of smoke. Whoa, Naruto breathed, his eyes glazed with awe. That was so cool, Ni-chan. I want to learn to do that. Don't be stupid, Sakura whispered at him, equally awed. That's a summoning technique. Only super advanced ninja know that. I'm not stupid. Naruto whispered back furiously. Stop acting like you are. Sakura shot back. We'll learn when we become ninja later. When we're older. Kakashi looked at his two students before him and smiled, listening to the squabbling with a blissful expression. It was good to be home. Chapter 4. We look so stupid, Naruto said in his best imitation of an indoor voice, which was a little less than shouting for other people. We're having dinner with some very nice people, Kakashi said, sounding like he was walking to his own funeral. He tugged irritably at the dark blue scarf he'd wound around his neck. He dug it up from the bottom of a box where he kept all of his old clothes. What had possessed him to invite himself over into enemy territory? Kakashi had distinct fantasies of 2 body bags being carried out of the Uchiha district, sized perfectly to fit him and Naruto. Shirt itches, Naruto whined and tugged at the hem of the formal white shirt Kakashi had shoved him into with threats of no ramen for a month. Deal with it, Kakashi snapped back and tried not to touch the kunai he'd slipped up his sleeves. No permanent damage, he reminded himself and straightened his back as they approached the gate leading to the district. He gave the 2 bored-looking sentries a cheerfully fake smile. Afternoon, he said. Lovely weather, isn't it? State your name and business, one of the guards said, flicking his dark eyes distastefully over Kakashi's blue scarf and mask, long-sleeved black shirt, and black pants. Naruto, mercifully, stayed quiet. Hatake Kakashi, here to have dinner with Uchiha Fugaku, Kakashi said and grabbed Naruto's shoulder in warning when it looked like he would make a run back to the village. Coward, he thought viciously, ignoring his own instinct to run back home. Fugaku-sama is expecting you, the sentry droned and Kakashi gave him a tight smile. Course he is. With a steel grip on Naruto, he shepherded him through the gates and into one of the most exclusive areas in Konoha. A bright red line of swinging lanterns met them, flames flickering in the evening wind. In the distance, Kakashi could laughter and the sound of steel ringing. Over there, his nose detected an okonomiyaki stand, bustling with business. Wow, Naruto whispered, looking around him in awe. It's like a whole nother village. This, Kakashi thought grimly, was the Uchiha district as it should have been in his own time. Filled with life, families, children running around without care or worry. No wonder Sasuke had been driven to madness. His entire home had been wiped out in the span of a night at the age of 7. The Night Aim granted the Uchiha this land as a gift for their faithful service to the village, Kakashi said, old lectures from Minato-sensei rising up to the surface of his mind. How many people live here? Naruto wondered, trying to keep up with Kakashi's quick pace through Main Street and towards the residential area. Hundreds, Kakashi replied distractedly and debated whether or not to put the 2 of them under a genjutsu, noticing the curious looks many of the Uchiha sent them. After a second, he decided against it. The more witnesses that saw them coming in, the better. Much harder for Fugaku to murder them. There's the main family, then several branch houses and some of the civilian families with close ties to the Uchiha clan that also live here. Main family and what? Naruto asked, his hand gripping Kakashi's tightly. The bustling crowds had thinned and the excitement of the shops faded away as the landscape shifted to accommodate more trees, ponds and the occasional house, roofs sweeping gracefully in the sky. Kakashi followed the path out of memory and occasionally checked the discreet chakra markers planted on the sides of the dirt road to make sure they were going to right direction. Big clans, especially those with Kekkai Genkai, are divided up into several sections, Kakashi said, tugging his forehead protector over Obito's eye absently. There's the main, important family. They're usually the strongest, and hold the most power. The branch ones are not as strong, and they don't have as much money or status. Uchiha Fugaku, who we're meeting for dinner, he's the most important person here. He's the head of the main family, which means he's the head of the entire clan. That means he's super powerful? Naruto asked, nose scrunched up. I guess so, Kakashi hazarded, trying to ignore the way his heart was sinking into his stomach as Fugaku's grand and beautiful house slowly came into view. But he's not as powerful as you, right, Kakashi and Ai-san? Startled, Kakashi looked down at Naruto's bright blue eyes, right at Minato-sensei's eyes, wide and open and so trusting. It's hard to say, Kakashi said after a long moment. I haven't fought him before. Don't worry, Ai-san, Naruto said confidently, squeezing his hand tight. I know you're the bestest ninja in the whole world ever. You can definitely beat Fugaku, Kakashi corrected automatically and wondered vaguely at the warmth that was rising in his chest. Right, that's what I said. They reached the end of the path and Kakashi stood in front of the steps leading up to the magnificent sliding doors. It looked much the same as it did when he'd first come here, 12 years old and miserable, with Obito's eye freshly implanted in his head and wondering if the Uchiha clan head would ask for his death. At least this time he was here for much more pleasant reasons. Kakashi flared his chakra once and felt 2 chakra signatures float over towards the door immediately. The doors slid open without a sound, revealing a kind-looking woman in a kimono and Itachi, dressed in a traditional collared shirt and old standard-issue black pants. Oh! The woman pressed a hand against her mouth. Please forgive our manners, we were expecting you much later. Kakashi prodded Naruto with his elbow. Bow, he hissed. Looking up at Uchiha Mikoto, he smiled and bowed as well. It's a pleasure to meet you, Uchiha-san, he said. This is my ward Uzumaki Naruto. To his credit, Naruto only wobbled slightly when he bent over. It's very good to see you, Hataki-san, Itachi remarked softly, dark eyes unreadable. And you as well, Uzumaki-kun. At Naruto's curious look, Mikoto smiled hesitantly. My son, Itachi, she explained, a gentle hand on her son's shoulder. Please come in. Welcome to our home. The two trooped up the wooden stairs and entered a tastefully decorated anteroom covered with tatami mats. Kakashi shucked off his sandals and shoved them under a bench, picking up a pair of slippers that looked like they might fit him. We have to change shoes? Naruto whispered, looking very scandalized at the pink and white house slippers Kakashi was pulling on. Do as I do, Naruto, and we may yet come out of this alive. Kakashi hunted around for a pair in Naruto's size and found a cheerful-looking yellow one stamped with the Uchiha crest. Take off your sandals and put these on, it's the polite thing to do. With ill grace, Naruto yanked off his beloved ninja sandals. He'd been so overjoyed when Kakashi had bought him the pair that he'd been struck speechless, and pushed them right next to Kakashi's, his little feet dwarfed by Kakashi's worn and dirty blue sandals. Dinner will take a while, Itachi said from the hallway leading out of the anteroom, his voice floating over to the whispering duo on the floor. My mother wishes to send her apologies for leaving her guests, but the rice needed tending to right away. Oh, not a problem, Kakashi said, standing up in one smooth motion and tucking a squirming Naruto under an arm. It's our fault for coming so early. Itachi smiled and gestured at them to follow. I have a younger brother about the same age as you, Uzumaki-kun, he said, leading them through labyrinthine maze of beautiful hardwood hallways and rice paper sliding doors. Kakashi was vaguely reminded of the countless homes of lords he'd assassinated in the elegant simplicity of the lines. His name is Sasuke and he'll be attending the academy next year. Naruto perked up at the mention of the Konoha Ninja Academy. Really? Me too. Kakashi and I said I could go next year when I'm 7 and I'm super excited to go. Perhaps you'll be classmates. Itachi mused gently and stopped in front of an unmarked rice paper door, 2 chakra signatures flickering behind it. Father, he said, raising his voice a little. You have guests. Enter. Kakashi tightened his grip on Naruto and followed Itachi into the lair of Uchiha Fugaku. It was surprisingly open. An entire wall had been pulled out in the far end, opening up into a courtyard filled with beautiful plants and a well-tended rock garden. Fugaku himself sat at a low table in the middle of the room, a cup of tea in front of him, the village paper in his hands and little Sasuke sitting beside him, looking supremely bored. Uchiha-san! So good to see you, what a lovely home you have, Kakashi said brightly and plopped down onto a cushion, settling Naruto down beside him, across from Sasuke. This is my ward Uzumaki Naruto. That must be your son Sasuke, right? Itachi gave him an unreadable look as he settled down next to his father's side. Hataki-san, Fugaku said coolly, setting down the paper and looking very much like he wanted to give Kakashi the stink eye. How pleasant to see you. Likewise, Kakashi said amiably and wondered how long this torture would last. Naruto, he nudged, say hello to our wonderful host. Naruto grinned. Hiya Fugu. Kakashi nudged him a little harder. Fugaku-san. Naruto recovered, stumbling a little. Nice ta meet-cha. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the greatest prankster in the whole widest world and I'm gonna be the Hokage someday. Yeah, Fugaku looked like Naruto had thrown up all over his hakama. He dreams big. Kakashi grinned and ruffled Naruto's hair, ignoring Naruto's squawk of indignity. Sasuke, across the table, came alive a little and smiled, chubby cheeks scrunching up. It was, Kakashi thought with a little dismay, adorable. What about you, Sasuke-kun? Kakashi said, propping his elbow lazily on the table. You're going to the academy next year, right? Sasuke gave his father a quick sidelong glance before speaking up. Yes, he said, pride swelling up in his squeaky voice. Father said I shall be going when I'm 7 years old. I'm going to be a ninja and be better than my Aniki someday. Hey, I bet my NII-san is better than your NII-san. Naruto shouted, slamming his fists enthusiastically down on the table. Fugaku's eye twitched. What? Sasuke looked like someone had punched him. The tiny 6-year-old stood up, cheeks flushing, hands on his hips. My NII-san is the best ninja in the village, so there. Kakashi NII-san is the best in the whole country, Naruto shot back, standing up as well. He's the bestest ninja in the world. No mine is. No mine. No mine to the power of infinity. Kakashi raised his voice the second he saw Fugaku's temper reach boiling point. Alright boys, he said sheepishly, running a hand through his scruffy hair. No need to argue about silly things like that. Itachi gave him an amused look. Silly? The boys shrieked in unison, and then shot each other equally dirty looks. Silly, Itachi repeated in a firm voice. Kakashi-senpai and I are ninja in service to the village. There's no need for comparison. The back of Kakashi's head smugly pointed out that Kakashi was probably better than Itachi, so there was no need to argue the point. Right, and you two will be much better than us in the future, I'm sure, he said, tugging Naruto back down onto the floor. Yeah, whatever, I still think you're better, Naruto said grumpily. Sasuke looked murderous, and the tentative peace Kakashi and Itachi had established threatened to shatter. How about we play a game? Kakashi threw in desperately. A cool ninja game that my own sensei taught me when I was your age? Game? Naruto said, ear pricking up. A ninja game? Yes, but only if you and Sasuke play together. With a discreet movement, he gestured at Itachi to bring some ink, a brush and rice paper right now. Without hesitation, Itachi slipped from the room silently, the two younger boys ignorant of his departure. We will be having dinner soon. Fugaku's voice brooked no dissent. Just a little game, Kakashi said smoothly, plowing right through Fugaku. Kakashi had 30 years of experience ignoring 3 different Hokages. Fugaku didn't quite measure up to the fury of Tsunade, the implacable nature of the Sandaime, or the terrifying skill of the Yondaime. My Jounin sensei taught me this when I was 6. Of course, Minato sensei had used the exercise to teach him to recognize and avoid exploding notes in preparation for the Chunin exam, but with a few modifications. Despite himself, Fugaku looked intrigued. Your sensei? The Hokage went unsaid, but Kakashi heard it all the same. It helped me pass the Chunin exam, Kakashi said truthfully. He'd exploited the basics of sealing techniques Minato sensei had taught him, and took out an entire colony of giant centipedes. Thank you, Uchiha-kun, Kakashi said as Itachi suddenly reappeared at his elbow, setting an inkstone, brush and rice paper on the table. Please, father, Sasuke begged his father, eyes going wide and all adorable. How strange to see something so cute on his revenge-obsessed and bitter student's face. How normal it looked. How right. Kakashi risked a quick glance at Itachi and filed away the soft and caring look on his face. All right, Fugaku gave in, but his eyes were stern. But we finish as soon as your mother says dinner is ready. Thank you, father, Sasuke beamed. Yeah, thanks Fugaku-san. Naruto cheered. We're gonna play a ninja game. Kakashi ground up an ink stick Itachi had so thoughtfully provided and dipped a finger into the murky black water, testing the consistency. With a sharp nudge, he pushed chakra out of his finger, and the fresh ink glowed an iridescent blue. Sucking up the chakra, he fed it greedily. After a few minutes, he let the flow trickle to a halt, and dipped his brush into the chakra-enhanced ink. Exploding tags? Fugaku observed, dark eyes keen. Something like that, Kakashi responded absently, and began sketching out 6 sealing tags onto a sheet of paper, primed to explode when the release kanji was scored. Explodes with ink instead of chakra fire. My sensei came up with it to help me understand the principles of exploding notes and sealing techniques. He finished inscribing the 6 tags with quick strokes of his brush and then palmed a kunai. With swift, easy movements, the sheet was cut into 6 sections and Kakashi set them aside to dry on the table and started on another one. This is excellent sealing work, Itachi noted quietly, his dark eyes flickering with red. Have you tried modifying it for other uses? It's basic sealing, Kakashi said, worrying his bottom lip as he painted the release kanji with small, careful strokes. Sensei came up with all these modifications for the tags. Flares, sensor tags, timed explosions. It's how he managed to work out Hiraishin in the first place. The Flying Thunder God technique? Fugaku's eyebrows rose as Kakashi nodded. Done! Kakashi cut the last sheet of paper and set a casual wave of chakra wind over them, drying the 12 exploding tags in an instant. Alright, boys. Kakashi grinned wolfishly. Want to play a ninja game? He's not what I expected, Fugaku said, sipping his tea contemplatively. His son twitched at his side, eyes easily tracking the punch Sasuke valiantly tried to land on Kakashi, only to hit Naruto's shoulder. The ensuing screech of pain was loud enough to remind Fugaku of Sasuke's much younger days. Which one? Itachi asked. Both. He swirled the green tea around in his mouth, enjoying the clean, bitter taste. The boy is surprisingly normal for. Fugaku paused, searching for the right word. For what he is. If he and Sasuke befriend each other, it would be good for the clan. Why not for Sasuke's benefit? Itachi asked, his son's normally soft voice hardening a little. Fugaku frowned. What is good for the clan is undoubtedly good for Sasuke, he said, his voice reproving. You must not forget, Itachi, we all of us have a duty to maintain the clan's power and status in the village, as it is right. Uzumaki is now Hataki's ward, and he's recently claimed his father's seat for his own. Things are changing, Itachi, and the Uchiha must keep up. He watched Kakashi easily dance around the exploding notes Sasuke had cleverly hidden in the dirt, only for Naruto to come flying out of Mikoto's prized rose bushes, scattering pink rose petals everywhere. Kakashi neatly dodged the boy but failed to account for Sasuke, who sprang up and went straight for Kakashi's knees. Long ago, Senju and Uchiha came together to form the basis of this village. Fugaku put down his cup of tea. Why was his eldest son telling him the story every Konoha babe learned at their mother's knee? Yes, he said slowly, humoring his son. Madara-sama and Hashirama-sama brokered peace and founded the first and most powerful hidden village, but Madara betrayed the clan and the village. Itachi's voice was cold and dispassionate. His ambitions proved too great, and he broke the trust that made this village what it was. His son blinked and his red eyes slowly shifted back to black as a giant plume of inky smoke enveloped the courtyard, covering Naruto and Sasuke, much to their combined dismay, judging by their yelps. The Uchiha have always been faithful to the village, Fugaku said, his voice growing very cold, colder than his son's. It is not our fault if the Hokage and the council fail to trust us and lock us away in seclusion, using us as tools they can just throw away. If Sasuke were to disobey you and break a promise to you, father, you would be disappointed, wouldn't you? You would punish him and wonder if he deserved trust, but you would still love him, wouldn't you, father? Fugaku tried to trace the winding web of words that his son wove around him, but could find no straight path. Sasuke is my son, he said. I would be disappointed, of course, but he is my family. My son. Konoha has feared the Uchiha, that is true, Itachi said quietly, fingering the frayed hem of his old training shirt. And it has unjustly forced us to live in a district far from others, making us live in isolation. Small wonder that we have grown distant from the village that we have helped found and guard. If Sasuke were to grow to hate you for your distance, wouldn't you push him away even further? Wouldn't you feel as if he weren't deserving, not mature enough to deserve your trust again? Fugaku felt something in his chest tighten. Sasuke is not the Uchiha and I am not the council, he said slowly, shakily finding his way in this new territory that Itachi slowly mapped out in front of him. Of course not, Itachi said calmly, and Fugaku looked at his son, his 11-year-old Chunin boy, and his chest tightened even more. It seemed only yesterday when his little boy was crawling over to him, demanding to be held up in the air. The Uchiha must protect the village, Itachi continued, but let us not forget that we are also a part of the village, father. Fugaku had a half-a-second warning before his younger son barreled towards him, every inch of exposed skin covered with streaks of dried ink. Papa, Papa! Sasuke beamed and jumped into his father's arms, instantly ruining Fugaku's hakama, hand-stitched by Mikoto with the finest silk and cotton. Did you see? Did you see? His son babbled, clinging to Fugaku's neck with sweaty, grimy fingers. We pushed Kakashi and Isan to the ground and then he disappeared and it was Mama's roses and then we got all covered with the black stuff and Papa, it was so much fun, he finished with a deep, satisfied smile. Your mother would be very sad to see you so dirty, Fugaku tried to say sternly, but somehow his voice would only come out soft and weak. He cleared his throat and instead inclined his head at Hatake, who was casually walking into the room from the courtyard, holding Naruto clear off the floor with a tight grip on the back of the boy's shirt. To his credit, the silver-haired man was entirely spot-free. Thank you, he said gruffly, and the other man just nodded back boredly. Itachi rose gracefully from the ground. I'll let mother know that Sasuke and Naruto both need a new change of clothes and a quick wash. Naruto groaned, squirming in the air. Another bath? But I had one today already. Kakashi shook his burden lightly. You're a mess right now. You'll get all the cushions dirty when we sit down to eat, Naruto. If you'll follow me? Itachi asked deferentially, and Kakashi, along with his blonde-haired burden, followed his eldest son out of the door. You too, Sasuke, Fugaku said, and lifted Sasuke from his lap and set him down on the floor. "'Kay, Papa," Sasuke said obediently and scampered out the door, leaving small black footprints in his wake. "Wait for me, idiot." He heard his younger son yell, and the Uzumaki boy yell something incomprehensible back. Fugaku closed his eyes and reached out with his senses, chakra flickering like ghostly flames in his mind's eyes. He could feel Sasuke's bright flicker and Kakashi's and Itachi's more tempered presences, tightly controlled and quiet. The Uzumaki boy's was like a roaring flame, coated with a malevolent chakra that was undoubtedly the demon fox tainting it. Far to the right of him, he could feel Mikoto's graceful flame, flickering in time with his own as she moved around the kitchen. "We are also a part of the village, father." When had his son, his little 11-year-old boy, grown so wise? "Oh, you really don't have to do that," Mikoto said softly, stacking up the bowls and chopsticks with easy, deft movements. "It'll keep me away from Naruto," Kakashi said, and used the reflective glass window above Mikoto's head to check on the two boys gossiping happily over the latest comic books behind them on the floor. "He's busy being a 6-year-old. I'm too old to play with him right now. They grow up so fast," Mikoto said wistfully, and carried a stack of bowls into the kitchen, Kakashi following her, footsteps silent. "Seems like only yesterday Sasuke-chan was throwing his mashed potatoes at the wall. He must have had excellent aim." Mikoto slid the bowls into the sink and turned the tap on, pulling on a pair of bright red gloves stamped with the Uchiha crust. She smiled up at Kakashi, and the corners of her eyes crinkled. "It took Fugaku a week for his hair to stop smelling like peas," she whispered conspiratorially, generously pouring soap all over her sponge. Kakashi had a graphic vision of Fugaku covered in slimy green goop, and he was suddenly very grateful that he'd missed that particular phase with Naruto. He picked up a dish towel and methodically began drying the dishes that Mikoto washed. They slipped into a comfortable routine, Mikoto occasionally humming a song or chatting idly about her sons. Kakashi dried the last bowl and stacked it carefully in the cabinet, absently noting the expensive craftsmanship of the porcelain dishware. "Kakashi-san, forgive me if this sounds impertinent, but..." Kakashi closed the cabinet door and tilted his head at her, dark eye flicking over her slim frame. He waited as she clasped her hands tightly, struggle painted clearly on her face. "Uzumaki Kushina was a very dear friend of mine," Mikoto said slowly, and Kakashi's breath caught in his throat. "You were the Yondaime student, weren't you, Kakashi-san?" He nodded tightly. Mikoto hesitated for a moment before plowing on, her eyes growing determined. "Then you must have had a passing acquaintance with her. Kushina-san had been the one to convince Minato-sensei to let him stay in their guest room after the incident, and the one to convince the Sandaime that Minato should be appointed his legal guardian. She'd made him kitsune ramen for his birthdays and always made sure to visit him in the hospital, clucking over the seals that the medics had drawn up and switching them out for her own. In a way, she'd been the mother he never had." "Yes," Kakashi said tersely. "I knew her." "Then Uzumaki-kun." Kakashi's right hand tightened into a fist. "Be careful with what you say, Uchiha-san," he said, forcing his voice to be smooth and even. Mikoto let out a tense breath, and her eyes were half hopeful and half fearful. "Are you saying dash?" "I haven't said anything," he said evenly, and forced his hand to relax, letting it fall uselessly at his side. Mikoto nodded, and Kakashi remembered vaguely that Mikoto herself had been an accomplished kunoichi before she'd retired to marry Fugaku and bear children. It showed in her tightly trained chakra signature and her mannerisms. "That's enough," she said, her voice a gentle sigh. "Thank you very much, Kakashi-san." Kakashi shrugged. "I haven't said anything for you to thank me for." Mikoto smiled and pulled off her rubber gloves with a snap. "Kushina-chan was very fond of you, you know." Kakashi swallowed. "She was a good ninja," he said. "A credit to her village." Mikoto turned away to the end of the kitchen, and Kakashi was silently grateful for the privacy she gave him to master himself. She opened the fridge door and pulled out a beautiful plate arrayed with flowering patterns of mochi in 100 different colors. "I think the boys would enjoy this treat, don't you think so, Kakashi-san?" "Yes, Naruto would be thrilled," Kakashi said, and memorized the soft, maternal look Mikoto gave him, hiding a core of hard steel. What Kushina-san had been to him, perhaps Mikoto could be for Naruto. "Very thrilled," he said. "Kushina-san enjoyed mochi very much. Then I'm sure Naruto-kun would enjoy them as well." Mikoto gave him a knowing look and carried the tray out the door. Kakashi heard the polite creak of wood before Itachi's chakra unfurled next to him, whisper soft. He relaxed the instinctive flood of chakra to his fingers and tucked a dagger back into his sandal. Hataki-senpai, Itachi said quietly. I apologize for disturbing you. Kakashi shrugged and continued to watch Naruto and Sasuke gambol excitedly like two cats in the courtyard beneath them, tearing through Mikoto's prized roses without a thought. Sasuke seems very pleased to have found a playmate his age, the boy said lightly. He doesn't have a great many friends in the district, and since father refused to let him attend the civilian school. You seem fond of your brother, Kakashi said, leaning back on his hands, hard roof tiles digging into his skin. Of course. He's my brother, Itachi said solemnly as if that were explanation enough. Too many things didn't make sense. Why had Itachi murdered his entire clan but left Sasuke alive? And why did the massacre happen at the same time as when Kakashi had left ANBU and Root had grown in power? Why? Over the years, Kakashi had cobbled together facts and lurked through the records, trying to figure out what had exactly occurred that night, that fateful night when the clan heir snapped and killed 246 people. Coming back, here, he'd gambled and made contact with Itachi, if only to keep the boy close and monitor his mental state, and maybe use him against Danzu. But nothing made sense. Itachi, during his time as an Akatsuki operative, had never been known to kill a Konoha shinobi. He'd certainly incapacitated, harmed, maimed, threatened but never, ever killed. Not even when he'd the chance and Kakashi had been helpless at his feet. Not when Sasuke had been 7 and vulnerable, not when Sasuke had been 12 and driven mad by vengeance. It was one reason why Kakashi had thrown in a spiel about protecting the village, hoping that there was more underneath the underneath. And it had worked. There was more that he didn't know about, and Kakashi had a sinking suspicion that Fugaku and Danzu were at the heart of it. Clan politics? Kakashi's lip curled. He'd certainly experienced more than his fair share of it, first with his father's disgrace and later when Obito's gift had enraged the Uchiha clan. Even then, Sasuke-sama had been obsessed with power, with the Uchihas standing in the eyes of the village. Fugaku was much the same, and no doubt he was infecting his own sons with the same nonsense, dragging his eldest son into the viper's nest. Could it be that Fugaku had driven Itachi mad? But that hardly made any sense, given what he knew of the boy. And how did it all tie into the massacre? It's a beautiful home, Kakashi offered, breaking the tense silence that had sprung up between them. My grandfather had it built during the Third War in accordance with his views on the prominence of the Uchiha, Itachi said. I remember. Kakashi shrugged. It looks much better finished, and with a family living in it. Itachi cocked his head like a bird, shifting almost imperceptibly on his feet. You've been here before. A long, long time ago. 7, 8 years ago about in this body, but for Kakashi's mind it was an entire lifetime ago. Kakashi tapped his forehead protector. Your uncle's gift had some repercussions. I'd heard some rumors, but... Itachi's voice trailed off. They objected to having a non-Uchiha bear the Sharingan, Kakashi said laconically. It didn't help I was the son of the White Fang. A disgrace. I believe that your father was a hero, Itachi said, and Kakashi snapped his head to look at the boy perched at his side, heart thudding. Those who abandon their teammates are worse than scum. Your father was a hero. The White Fang was a hero. Obito. What? Kakashi croaked. Dark eyes reflected the light of the stars above them. The White Fang saved the lives of 6 shinobi on that mission. It was wrong of the village to condemn him for that. Itachi shrugged. How strange that Uchiha Obito, black sheep and perpetual failure, would be born again as the clan heir and the strongest Uchiha born of the clan for generation. How fitting. But the massacre. Kakashi bit down the urge to growl. He had too few pieces and not enough information to solve the damned puzzle hovering in front of him, and he was running out of time. The village has condemned many, Kakashi said carefully, picking his words with caution. My father Naruto, the Uchiha, Itachi twitched. Yes, the boy allowed. Fear has been known to misguide, but we must still protect the village, because it holds the most important thing in the world. Itachi looked up at the older man, his eyes curious. The future, Kakashi said quietly and jerked his head at the 2 laughing boys, wrestling on the ground. There was another long silence before Itachi spoke up, his normally calm voice now hesitant. Kakashi-senpai, I believe that there are some in this clan that are making less than wise choices. Kakashi's ears pricked, and he scratched his nose casually. Oh, there have been. Itachi idly picked at a clay tile, scratching something illegible with his fingernail. Angry conversations. About the village's mistrust. The decline of Uchiha power. Kakashi puzzled over Itachi's words, face unreadable. You don't mean Dash? Who knows what a frightened animal, backed into a corner, might do when it feels that it is going to be devoured. Kakashi's breath caught in his chest. A coup. The Uchiha were planning a coup. Of all the theories he'd come up with over the years, he never even bothered to think about the coup, convinced of the loyalty of a founding clan. A coup. There had been rumors of the Uchiha being discontent, powerful but furious at being sidelined in favor of others, like the Hyuga. But to overthrow the council and potentially assassinate the Hokage Kakashi felt like someone had punched clean through his chest. No wonder Itachi had killed them all, Kakashi realized numbly. The other option was Konoha being split apart by internal conflict, more than easy pickings for the rest of the hidden villages. And Danzo the massacre fair reeked of him. Somehow, he must have manipulated the boy next to him into going against his own family while in ANBU. Eliminate threats at any and all costs. It made so much sense. No wonder Itachi had never killed the Konoha Nin, no wonder he kept his brother alive. He loved him too much to kill him. No doubt Danzo used that love to kill Itachi's family. He looked down below him, watching Sasuke leap into a flying tackle and flatten Naruto onto the ground, the two of them shrieking bloody murder at each other. His pack ruined by the ambitions of Danzo and Fugaku, just collateral damage. Just two little boys, ruined by pride and ambition. Kakashi felt sick. A bracing hand gently touched his shoulder and Kakashi blinked once, twice. Itachi, he said quietly. You must listen to me. We need to prevent this, whatever this is, from happening. The grip on his shoulder tightened. I have tried my best, Kakashi-senpai, but Kakashi shook his head violently. There is much more going on than you think, he said in a low voice. But if the council catches even so much as a word of this. Itachi stilled and the two of them looked at the children beneath them. They wouldn't dare. What do you think happened to all the clans with Kekkai, Genkai and Kiri? Kakashi's mouth twisted underneath his mask. One man with the ability to walk through shadows tries to assassinate the Mizukage. The next day, an edict goes out ordering the death of all with special abilities. The Uchiha have played with fire so long that we have forgotten how dangerous it is. Itachi let go of Kakashi's shoulder and retreated into the shadows, face wan and pale. Kakashi-senpai, there are a few of us in the clan who want to protect the village and our families. We are running out of time. Kakashi's lips thinned. The council is restless as it is. I don't think I have to tell you about how Danzo is feeling. I will alert them right away, Itachi said, crossing his arms over his chest. But it's the clan elders who will prove to be the most trouble. Clan-village relations must be strengthened, Kakashi said absently. I'll speak on behalf of the clan during council meetings and privately with the Hokage, but I can only do so much. The clan needs to make this happen. Fugaku needs to make this happen. Kakashi scowled and dug his fingers into the terracotta roof, unconsciously channeling chakra. You speak as if you know what will happen. Kakashi met Itachi's intense stare with a droopy eye, projecting as much disinterest as he could possibly muster. Oh, not really, Kakashi said vaguely. But I know the council. I know shinobi villages. I know war. Itachi sucked in a quiet breath. You don't mean Sasuke. You and your friends have your work cut out for yourselves, Kakashi said, and his fingers slid through hardened clay like a hot knife in butter. Or the clan's precious future might never happen. It was good of you to come, Fugaku said gruffly and bowed as a man befitting his station. Barely. Oh well, it was a wonderful meal. The Hitaki boy smiled and bobbed like an idiot, but Fugaku saw the clever mind hiding behind the unseemly mask. Please do come again, Mikoto said gently, and she pressed her callous, small hand against his, gripping tight. Fugaku swallowed, and something inside of him softened at his wife's touch. Dinner again would be no bad thing, he said slowly, and his wife's chakra flickered brightly. Come over next time and I'll show you the cool shuriken trick Aniki showed me, Sasuke boasted, but Fugaku was too proud of his son to scold him for being so rude to the guests. I'll bring Raya-chan with me. Naruto bounced on his feet, barely held in place by the Hitaki's grip on his shoulder. He knows all these cool tricks, and maybe we can teach him to do shuriken tricks too. Sasuke looked intrigued and a sly look passed over his face. Dog tricks? Fugaku had always forbidden pets on the grounds of mess, but Sasuke had persisted in bringing home stray animals, throwing formidable temper tantrums when Fugaku had carried the latest kitten or bird out to the woods. He had a distinctly unwell feeling when looking at Sasuke's face. Yeah, dog tricks, the blonde boy said happily. Me and Nisan's friend, Raya-chan's the best. Sasuke, the demonic child that he was, turned large, bright eyes at him. Papa, he said in a forlorn sort of voice. May Ryu-chan and Naruto come and visit soon? Well, Fugaku swallowed as Sasuke's eyes filled with more tears. I'll think about it, he muttered and gripped his wife's hand for support. Sasuke cheered and the two children enacted some sort of victory dance ritual, jumping up and down and throwing their arms in the air, shouting like little hooligans. Alright, that's enough, Fugaku said coldly. The guests must be on their way now. Sasuke immediately fell back into line, but his lines of his face were satisfied. Fugaku thought despairingly that in some ways his children were even worse than the power plays of the council. Bow, he heard the Hatake boy whisper to his charge, and the Uzumaki boy bowed unsteadily, bright blonde hair flopping as he did. Strange, how much the child reminded him of another Uzumaki, long gone and dead. It was very good to see you, Uzumaki-kun, Kakashi-senpai. His eldest son bowed back gracefully, perhaps a touch more deeper than he should have as a clan heir, but Fugaku could clearly see the respect his son had for the Hatake. Interesting. Strengthening ties between the Uchiha and the Hatake could prove useful during council meetings. We'll see you soon. Hatake bobbed and crouched down, letting Naruto eagerly clamber up onto his back, thin arms curled around the masked man's neck. The night is late, and I don't want to impose on your hospitality any longer. When the silver and gold-haired duo disappeared with just a flicker of chakra, Fugaku breathed out a sigh of relief. They were very lovely. Mikoto smiled and squeezed his hands, her dark eyes affectionate. Naruto's not lovely, Sasuke said disparagingly, lower lip sticking out in a pout. He's a boy, Sasuke, Fugaku said warningly. Mikoto patted her son's head gently. If he's not lovely, then what is he? To the family's surprise, it was Itachi who answered Mikoto's question. A good friend, he said quietly. Sasuke beamed up at his eldest son. Exactly, he said. A chakra string twanged softly outside his window and Kakashi woke without a sound, kunai already in his hand. He always slept with blades under his pillow, and chakra burning bright in his left hand. There was something hovering outside his window, tripping his seals, and Kakashi reached out irritatedly with his chakra, probing the guarded presence. He thought he'd kept the damned couriers away with his anti-chakra seals outside his window. When Kakashi recognized the presence, he let his chakra die away but kept the blade tight in his hand. With a rough hand, he jerked the shade up to reveal Tenza's wide eyes, face looking even paler than usual. Tenza tapped on the glass with trembling hands. Outside open now, emergency now, and Kakashi jerked the window open with a little more force than he had to. He slithered out, dressed in nothing but pajama bottoms and armed with a single kunai. What is it? He snarled, Tenza's tension making his hackles rise. Did someone die? No. Tenza swallowed and his face whitened. Kakashi didn't know whether it was because of the news he was bringing or because of Kakashi's killer intent. Probably both. Kakashi found that he couldn't exactly care at the moment. Naruto was sleeping just 10 feet away and Sandaime-sama had sworn that he would give him 2 months of leave to look after him. He was still exhausted from his visit to the Uchiha district, and the sour smell of Tenza's fear didn't make him feel any better. Then what is it? Delta squads being sent out on a suicide mission. Kakashi gripped the window frame tightly, knuckles whitening. His kunai trembled in his other hand. What? He asked dully. Captain Ginma just received. I didn't know who else to ask, but Kakashi closed his eye. Danzu, he said. It wasn't a question. Tenza nodded miserably, dark circles under his eyes highlighted by the dim light of the moon. Straight from the mouth of the councilman. Fuck.